everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil of Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday, everyone. Hopefully you guys are doing well. We're gonna be doing live readings on the channel this evening. Do me a favor, if you can see me, give me a thumbs up and like the stream. That way everybody knows that we're going live. I'm excited to get into this. We have some big astrology happening in this next week. In particular, depending on what you guys have questions about, I will be answering questions by donation only, and I am going to be aiming a lot of these readings towards the Sun, Venus, Cazimi. That's kind of like the big news. Obviously, we're kind of in between. We have a new moon in Leo too, so if you guys have questions about that, let me know. Or if you have another question about a transit or about something going on in your natal chart, that's something that you guys can ask me a question about. So if you're new to my channel, I'm a Western astrologer. I work with Western astrology as well as tarot and the Sabian symbols to understand what's going on in the cosmos. Every Friday night we're here live and we alternate between tarot and astrology readings. And this week would be a good time to get a reading. If you guys are new to this, basically to get a reading, you have to scan this QR code right over here, and that's gonna take you to my PayPal where you can make a donation. It's $55 US for a minimum donation for a reading. Please make sure you include your time, date of birth, location, and yeah, spell it all out for me so there's no mistakes. Please, in the memo, put this information. That way we can get through all of the questions, as well as if your name differs from your PayPal to your YouTube name, so there's no confusion. I appreciate your guys' patience because sometimes the astrology readings are rather long. We have a lot of people who are generally already in line. We've already got about 10 people. So once you guys make the donation, just let me know, and every couple readings I'll break and give you guys a heads up where we're at in the readings, and I'll call a couple people in advance just to let you know that you're on deck for a reading. Just want to say hello to everybody who's in the chat. What's up, Emma, Lavender, hey Deanna. What's going on, Anne? Thank you for your donation. What's up, Jessica? I definitely got your donation. I saw your question. Rome's here. Carol. What's up, Coco? Coco says, Happy Venus Day. Hey, Carmela. Zeta, am I saying that correctly? I mispronounce names all the time, so don't hesitate to correct me. Hey, Katerina. Tanisha, Judy. I did get your order, Jessica. I got you. Coco, you want to cash in on your weekly, or your monthly, I guess I should say? I can add you to my list. So those of you guys who are not aware, if you guys like my content, we have memberships on the channel. I'm kind of like in limbo right now. I'm playing around with a couple different potentials. I'm looking at Patreon, looking at working more on Twitter. But yeah, if you guys like my content, you want to support me, one of the ways you can support me is by joining my YouTube memberships. There's 3 different levels. What's cool is level 3, you support the channel, you're gonna get a shout out, but also you're gonna get a reading once a month. And you can choose between tarot or astrology. Generally, we're here almost every Friday, and you can cash in on that, and we take our level 3 people first. So I've got Emma, Deanna, and Coco. You guys are all gonna be the people that I'm gonna be talking to first. And I believe I have you in here, Coco, so let me just make sure so I can pull you up. December 1st, right? Yeah, okay. So I'll give you guys a bit of a roll call and let you know who I've got. So obviously we'll take the level 3 people first. But beyond that, we have a whole bunch of other people waiting. So Jessica, Rome, Sophia, Heather, Gillette, Anne, Lavender. I have all of your guys' donations. Thank you. I appreciate it very, very much. And if you guys have any issues, obviously you can scan the QR code. We will also generally have it pinned in the description or at the top of the chat, a direct link to the PayPal. We'll generally leave this open maybe about 20 minutes or so for you guys to sign up. And if you're not getting a reading, no worries, you can still hang out in the chat, say hello, consider sharing the stream out and helping us get this out there. And we'll start with Emma. Yes, get in the queue. What's up, Paula? Oh, I'll add you to my list too. I can definitely do that for you, Paula. Can you remind me your birth info again? Just want to make sure it's the right Paula. Okay, so let's start with Emma. She got in here super early. Emma says, hey Candace, cashing in on my monthly. I want to find out what I should be aware of with the Venus Cazimi. I'll listen to the recording as it will be 2 a.m. where I am. All right, cool. I got you. So Emma's a Cap rising with a moon in Scorpio and a sun in Pisces. And those of you guys who are still just tuning in, I'm going to be talking a lot about the Cazimi. So if you want to know what that means for you, let me know. Thanks, Paula. I got you. Okay, so in regards to what I can see here, it looks like the Cazimi that's setting up the conjunction between Venus and the Sun is taking place in your natal 9th house, okay? So I use Placidus, those of you guys who are watching me for the first time. I'm not a whole sign reader. So you're gonna hear for Capricorn, it's in your 8th house. It's about a secret being revealed. It's about something that is potentially about regeneration, transformation, overcoming something, especially matters of the heart. But in your case, it's in the 9th. So this is actually pretty positive because it has more of like a Saggy kind of vibe. Now, Venus in your chart rules your 11th house of friends as well as goals. It also has connections to your 6th house, which is Taurus, which is about help and assistance and routine. So personally, I kind of feel like this transit of the Sun-Venus Cazimi is going to possibly or probably be about, first of all, getting a reading, right? The 9th house can be about philosophical conversations. It can be about metaphysical things. And especially helping you kind of figure out what direction you're going in with your goals. Now, the 9th house can be education, it can be travel, it can be your belief system, your philosophy. And something that not a lot of people realize about this particular conjunction is that it's almost like a new moon, right? Venus is retrograde in conjunction to the Sun. So Venus is dying in the heart of the Sun, she's being reborn. So it's the rebirth of a belief system, especially when it comes to like what your goals are maybe with friendships or relationships. It could be that there is somebody helpful who pops in that could come through a network or someone online or possibly a friendship that connects with you in another country that's able to kind of help you work through some health, work, or scheduling issues. Now, what's interesting, and this is just across the board, this particular conjunction is also taking place simultaneously in the midst of what has been Venus square Uranus, right? So there's been a lot of like back and forth changes. And I'm wondering if this is about you making some changes in regards to what makes you happy, some of your hobbies, possibly being more open-minded when it comes to creative collaborations, romance. So it looks like you might be, I don't know, Venus retrograde. Are you returning back to, you know, a course that you took? Are you finishing a book you never kind of finished up? Are you getting back into the habit of, you know, being more productive when it comes to some of your playtime hobbies, these kinds of things, right? So I definitely think that that's probably the theme. Now, when we look at some of the aspects that it's also going to be making to other aspects in your chart, it's interesting because Venus rules obviously Taurus and Libra, but you've got Saturn coming into conjunction with Venus as well. So for me, in your 3rd house, it's about committing in the form of written words, communication, verbalizing what it is you love. And maybe it's going to be about like committing, because Saturn Venus can be like this like glue that can come together. Out of 4, I wonder if it's about making big decisions about, you know, how you communicate and talk to family, you know, where you potentially live, things involving, you know, learning or languages or ideas. And so, you know, definitely a lot of like Saturn Venus transits are about committing to what you really love. I think in your case, because Saturn is your chart ruler, it's beneficial. So committing to, you know, places you love, people you love, and being able to better kind of communicate that. So that seems important in the midst of this transit. And the trine that's happening is actually happening pretty close by to your natal Jupiter. It's within, what, 9-degree orb? 8-9-degree orb? So with Venus and the Sun trine Jupiter, it's helping you kind of get in contact or getting in touch with your inner child, your inner romantic, finding more time for play, which I think is like really helpful. And you may benefit actually from listening to the Sagittarius rising predictions for this. If you listen to like the Venus transit or like the Venus retrograde stuff, Listen to Sag. I know you're a Capricorn rising, but it's going to talk about how a change in your belief system, some travel, you know, maybe like a teacher or a mentor coming in is helping you kind of get in touch with what's most important to you. That's kind of what it's looking like to me. And keep in mind, guys, even though we're having this Cazimi, we're going to see Venus that's going to square off with Jupiter and Uranus a couple times. So a lot of people seem to be really surprised to know that this particular Venus retrograde is going to be in action from like June all the way till October. Even though the retrograde ends the beginning of September, we're going to see the Jupiter-Uranus squares with Venus really all the way up until the beginning of October. And besides that, I would also say something else to kind of keep an eye out for is this next full moon. It's about a little over 2 weeks away, but the next full moon that you're going to have, it's going to be really close to your Venus-Mercury midpoint, which is also reinforcing a lot of the things that I was just talking about. Knowing how to communicate, share, and express how you feel, what you value, what you love, and, you know, some kind of completion in regards to these topics. So this might shine a light on that, so that way you can be able to kind of better have those conversations. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Emma. Thanks for tuning in late. What's up, S? Yes, I did, Miss Olson. I got your donation. People are popping in and asking particular questions. So just send your donation and put your question in the memo and I will answer your question. We're not doing the various signs, but you guys can find all that info on the horoscopes. All right, so let's pull up Deanna. I saw Deanna was here as well. And Deanna says, hey there, cashing in. Back in LA, started yoga teacher training. The man and I had a blast in Ireland, talked about the next steps. Now we are apart. I think we realized we might want to live with each other. Could there be a future for me in Ireland? Okay, so first of all, Deanna, I really like this Cazimi that's setting up. It's right on your ascendant. That's kind of a big deal. So Venus rules your 10th house, which is about career and reputation. So whether that's I am now a yoga teacher or I am now in a relationship, big status changes, work and in regards to your public life are taking place right now. And it's very loud because it's in the midst of this Venus retrograde, it's squaring off with Jupiter and Uranus on your midheaven. So this is like exciting times for you in terms of like reintroducing yourself to the world, I guess. The angles in a chart are some of the most sensitive parts, in my opinion. And the ascendant deals with you, how you look, your body, how you express yourself to the world. So this Venus Cazimi that's setting up is bringing your 10th house lord retrograde in conjunction with the sun on your ascendant, which is like a moment of really getting in touch with what do I want? What do I love? If I could be anything in the world, what would it be, right? How could I identify out in the world? This Cazimi is taking place at 20 degrees. So that's a Scorpio degree. It does deal with some kind of personal transformation. Maybe it's about overcoming fear and embracing the unknown and being willing to like make a shift. Venus will come back to this degree closer to September. So to me, it seems as if there could be a bit of like a back and forth with where am I going to live and what am I going to be doing and what is my status going to be, because the ascendant is wherever you are. So it can have to do with like movement, not so much like relocation, but movement and traveling or being in kind of a state of flux. What you're going to see is when there are some really strong aspects to either your 4th house lord, so that would be Mars, or when you see, you know, transits maybe to Pluto, that could definitely bring up the opportunity for a move. In my mind, it's about being present the next couple of days with just what makes you feel complete and what makes you feel fulfilled and like the most valuable or the most like lovable. And when you see, like, for example, Mars coming into your 3rd house, okay, that's going to activate moves or movement. I could definitely see more talk of like, am I moving? You know, how does this work? Where am I going? Start coming up about mid-September. And you're going to have a solar eclipse that's going to be taking place in your third house, which can be about documents and getting prepared to move. And the ruler, which is Venus, is going to be in your first house, coming into a trine with Jupiter. And it's coming into a sextile with Mars. Personally, I kind of feel like with Mars square Mars, it doesn't make me feel like you're moving necessarily in the fall. I could definitely see more opportunity coming post the new moon in Scorpio. That's going to be around the 13th. That's going to be a new moon that's going to square your ascendant, and it's going to oppose Uranus. So it makes me feel like you're setting intentions from about mid-November on, when you realize what direction you're going also with your career, to help you better formulate a move. Then when you have I would say, South node on your moon come the new year. Maybe you're embracing moving to a foreign country. So right around mid-January. And then I get the impression it may not be until closer to like when Jupiter opposes your IC, and maybe when you have a full moon in Scorpio. So kind of end of March through, let's say, mid-May is more likely a time that I think that you would move, because you would be in your, Jupiter-Uranus opposition, so going through a change. You'll also have Saturn, which rules relationships, trining your IC, so you'll have the support of a partner. So yeah, I definitely could see that happening. I mean, you would also want to look at like your progressed moon. That's going to give you more insight into that as well. But being that you're also going to have like Mars, your fourth house lord, going into the ninth house conjunct the North Node, I think it's pretty safe. Like April, May seems to be like a better time for you to actually potentially make that segue. And, I think with Jupiter and Uranus in your 10th house, the career change could be the liberation that you need to make it easier for you to potentially be able to move, right? Has there been any like sudden changes to your appearance, or has there been any sudden changes or realizations maybe that you've made about like what you want your future to be, because that Cazimi is setting up conjunct your ascendant? Sorry, I'm catching up with the chat. Tanisha, yeah, you can do that if you want. You can come back for sure. I'm just now seeing your comment. Okay, cool. Thanks, Natalie. I see that. He's a Scorpio moon. Hey, Barbara. Thanks, SR. Yeah, so I would say April, May-ish. That's better timing. And by the time Mars is also coming into conjunction with Uranus as well, that's about making a significant change in your home and your career. And it's linking your fourth house and your seventh house lord together. And that's going to be about mid-July, right? And I think what's cool is like definitely with Jupiter and Uranus in your 10th house, like you could definitely maybe start doing some like retreat work, or start building your business to where it could be like digital, or you could be teaching people in other places in preparation to potentially like make that move, What's up, Marcia? Yeah, but I am really wanting you to pay attention to this Cazimi. So it's going to be sometime tomorrow, and maybe you have like an epiphany or a realization, or maybe that's when you start really like leaning into like this new status of being a yoga teacher. And then you're going to have the new moon that's going to come through and sit on your ascendant as well, and that's going to square Uranus. So it's about adopting like, hey, this is this new thing that I'm doing. This is this new goal. And the square to Uranus means that, you need the support of other people. But that definitely seems very like promising. And I also think I see a lot of moves happen when there's eclipses in the third house. I see people change homes sometimes when they have the south node on their moon too. So you have all of those like corresponding transits that are kind of all happening at the same time. The south node moon is going to be definitely in the new year. But that's going to be the willingness to kind of release and let go of your moon, your home. And you've got moon conjunct Pluto, so it means also the anxiety or how you're talking to other people about this whole process of like, okay, I'm really going to do this. You may have some really interesting conversations with like female relatives that are like, girl, you're really going? Like, are you sure? And you know, you're coming into your nodal return, your reverse nodal return next year. So I think that this is also going to be about being like, hey, I'm embracing the unknown, North Node in Aries in the 8th house, and learning how to accept support. Well, interesting that the North Node is going to be in your 8th house of other people's money, ruled by Mars, and you have natal Mars in the 12th, which means like part of this is also about having these conversations with your partner about being like, look, if I make this move, if I, you know, leave my home and, you know, everything that I've known and I take a risk, I'm going to be coming there and having to kind of like build my business and like figure out how to kind of get, you know, get stable with work. Do I have support from you? So you guys may go back and forth and realize that ultimately that may be easier if you're going to make a job change anyway. If he's got some kind of stability where he is, that may be a potential option. Very, very exciting. Remember, Uranus rules your 7th house. So when Jupiter and Uranus come together, you're like telling the world, hey, I'm doing this new thing. And it may be about, you know, telling people, because it's at 21, I'm relocating to go and be with this other partner in another place. It's a Sagittarius degree. Very exciting. That's why I think, honestly, this conjunction is so significant. Like, not enough, I don't feel like enough astrologers are talking about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but the Cazimi squares that. So it's almost like something is being seeded right now that we really want, even though it seems like almost impossible. And by the time we get to mid-April, when Jupiter and Uranus conjunct, we're going to realize it is possible. It's just taken a lot of planning to be able to get to that point. So I'm excited to see what happens. Keep me updated. I remember talking to you before this guy even showed up. I was like, you're going to meet some foreign person. And you're like, what? And I was like, yeah, you're going to want to move. Uranus transits will do that to you. Good luck. I've got Miss Coco. Let's see, what did Coco say? There she is. Thank you for your support, Coco. She says, what's up with love and money? Coco is a Pisces rising, sun in Sag, moon in Capricorn. She wants to know about love and she wants to know about money. Well, good thing money is Venus in your chart, right? It rules your 2nd house, Taurus. And Mercury rules your 7th house. This is going to be an interesting one. So I can kind of see two working with each other, to be honest with you. Mars is about to enter into your 7th house of relationships. And that can definitely be kicking up some action in regards to people being a little bit more aggressive, being like, hey, let's hang out. What are you doing? Or people who will walk right up to you and be a little bit more assertive. It's going to be interesting to see Mars move into that house because it's going to oppose your ascendant where Neptune is. So there may be a sense of you kind of being a little caught off guard by people who are like, hey, what's up? And definitely being a little pushy. That opposition is also going to be like a lot of like, what's the catch? Like, I'm not too sure. Like, let me see how it goes. And I think that I would take the being cautious approach only because you're also going to see really close to your descendant Mercury, which rules relationships, will also go retrograde in your 6th house. So there'll be a lot of like, oh, somebody's showing up, and it could be like scheduling issues, you know, work conflicts that are keeping you from being able to hang out. And a lot of miscommunications could potentially happen with that retrograde. Thankfully, you know, you have a lot of Capricorn in your chart. So, you know, when Mercury and Mars are in your 7th house, it is trining all of this Capricorn that you have in your 10th and 11th house. So there is a lot of like, I can't do it now, but this is the goal. And like being able to kind of talk about, you know, that you do want to actually see each other. Definitely with like a Mercury retrograde in your 7th whole sign and eclipses that are going to be coming here. I don't know if you listened to my horoscope that I gave for Pisces rising. And I talked about this a lot with the Mercury retrograde video too. There can be like a sense of like people being like back and forth, not communicating very well, kind of being hot and cold. I'm equally interested for you. You know, you do have Venus that is retrograding over your south node, and Venus notoriously in the 6th house is where we can feel that some relationships are a little like out of balance. Like it doesn't feel like it's quite coming together naturally. You'll hear in traditional astrology, oh, Venus in the 6th house, breakups, problems, conflicts, divorces. But in a transit, when there's a retrograde, if something has not been working, you're going to be like, ooh, this is not like meshing. And remember, Venus is looking back at the 5th house, which is like, do we have that strong emotional connection? Mercury is going retrograde, so it's looking at your south node, which is like, is this like an even, you know, kind of connection? And then Venus retrograde over your south node, right? So there can be dealing with people from the past. So definitely I think that this is also really interesting. You may want to go and look back at like the last time when Venus was at 18 degrees. It looks like Venus is going to hit 18 degrees again. And that's going to be also with the moon. So that's going to be like on August 15th and 16th. And I would just say anybody who comes in, just kind of feel it out. Now, the positive in this is that all these planets going in the 7th house, they're trining Jupiter and also Uranus. So there is opportunities to kind of reevaluate relationships and go, okay, where do I stand? Do I feel safe and secure? With money, obviously, you know, Mars trine Venus is good for your resources. If you have a client-based business, you might have more clients, you might have more support. You might just notice there's more people interested in working with you or collaborating with you. And you also have Jupiter and Uranus that are in a slight trine to your moon and your Venus. So yeah, money looks good. In my mind, I'm thinking more like what's going to be happening for you more when you have the eclipses there at the end of October. So that's really when you're going to start to see some stuff kind of pick up. Equally, we're going to see a solar eclipse that's going to be taking place in Libra. So for a Pisces rising, whole sign, right? 8th house. That solar eclipse in mid-October is also bringing up themes revolving around how you can set intentions to bring more money in. You'll see more long-term relationship stuff happen when Jupiter, which rules your chart traditionally, comes into conjunction with Uranus in the spring and it starts trining your Venus, right? And yeah, this might feel a little irritating actually. Now that I look at it, the Mercury-Mars square Mercury, there can be a lot of people who are coming in, but you're like, not on my timeline, right? You're like, I don't really know about this. Definitely kind of keeping a safe distance is kind of the impression that I'm getting. But like I said, the eclipses, not too far away, are definitely going to bring more in regards to like money stuff, the end of October, right? Right here. And then similarly to what I was just talking about with this conjunction, when you have Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction in the 2nd house, you can be making a substantial amount more money in the spring. But once again, something is being seeded now. So when I look at the Sun, Venus, Cazimi in your 6th house, it's like, what habits do I have to change? What daily routines do I have to change? What job stuff do I have to shift in order to be able to make more of these resources? Look at that new moon that's coming on the 16th. The square to Uranus is going to show everybody like where there's a need to level up. And this whole week is just going to be pretty electrifying with some of the 23s. I don't know if there's anybody that looks at the transits in advance, but I talked about this on my astro weather that's going to come out on Sunday. Just all of the 23s that are happening are going to make things really, really loud. And then maybe look at when Venus comes back over your south node. I would assume by then that's when you will have like sorted and sifted through the relationship and the work stuff to see what is and is not working for you. And I think you're going to make a more definitive decision closer to right around December 22nd-ish, when Venus leaves that conjunction to your south node, right? But yeah, work with that 7th house. If you have a client-based business, or if you need other people to make money, or if you're in sales or anything like that, definitely there can be a lot of support that you can be getting from other people in the midst of this. Hopefully that's helpful for you. So we're gonna maybe leave 5 more minutes for you guys to sign up, and then we're gonna close this down. Good luck, Coco. Let's see, I'm gonna pull up Paula, and then we'll be complete with all of our people. There we go. What's up, Paula? Did you have a particular question for me? I have to scan back through here and see what comes up. Let me know if you have a question. Is there any other level 3 people here? Let's see what Paula says. If you guys want to sign up, you can scan the QR code. We'll leave another 5 minutes or so. What's up, Ben? Ben says, how has it been for you? Well, it's been on my south node, square Pluto, and my sun, so it's been going. It's a lot of 11th house stuff. It's a lot of like looking at groups and platforms and friends and all that stuff. All right, Paula, let's take a look. Paula's the Gemini rising, sun in Sag. She's got her moon in Taurus. So generally speaking, obviously your chart lord, Mercury, is about to go retrograde pretty soon. Mercury and Mars moving through Virgo, you know, is both going to be a combination of a lot of action for you with home and family, living situation stuff involving also your kids at home, organization potentially within the home space, trying to find time to get back to your hobbies. And this can be a little challenging, right? When Mercury goes retrograde, being a Mercury ruled chart, and it's squaring your ascendant and your descendant, and it's opposing all of this Pisces. So from the perspective of Gemini rising, you know, Mercury retrograde coming in is like, how do we reorganize the house? What do we need to do to be able to kind of feel a little bit more sufficient? Do we clean out closets? Do we have garage sales? Are we talking to kids about picking their stuff up a little bit more? And is there some kind of schedule or something changing within the home front? It can also be things relating to parents. Now, from the perspective of Sag, you're going to hear that this is happening in your 10th house of career. So when I put the two together, because you have Sag and Gemini in your chart, I think it's going to be about like your responsibility for the home and, you know, what odds and ends and things you're feeling responsible for getting done. You are going to feel a little bit pulled in two different directions because there is oppositions to your 10th house where maybe there is a sense of like, hey, you know, duty calls, you've got work that you need to do, things that you need to show up for, people who are expecting you to get stuff done in your career. And you're kind of feeling like weighed down by, oh, but there's something going on at home and I need to fix this and the kids need this and they need that. So I think you're going to see a little bit of both. Try to be patient is the best advice that I can give you because, you know, this retrograde is going to test you for sure, especially how you communicate with relationships and people at work. But the positive is that you are going to see Mercury trine Jupiter several times. So getting adequate rest, practicing meditation, maybe doing some prayer, grounding your energy out in nature can be really helpful for managing any kind of stressful situations that are going on at home. I would also pay attention to like your dreams because there can be lots of dream stuff that's going on with trines to your 12th house. And this is about making plans behind the scenes. So you may even start talking about, you know, do we want to make changes at home physically? Are we thinking about getting another property? You know, are we going to be potentially moving? Are we looking at renovating something? That can come up here as well. And that retrograde is going to kind of, it's going to do its thing until the better part of like the end of September. So you're going to be in this for a little bit. And the Venus Cazimi that's taking place right now is taking place in your 3rd house. So this is an energy that deals with ideas and learning and communication and sharing or neighbors. And so this conjunction is also tying in your 12th house lord and your 6th house lord. There may be a sense of like you having to make some kind of change when it comes to your mindset and making some changes in terms of how you communicate. I would advise you to like get into the habit the next couple of days of like writing out your intentions and maybe speaking them out loud as in like the tense of them happening right now. So that way you're feeling like you're bringing more balance to your daily routine and like less stress and better rest is kind of the feeling that I'm getting, right? And what else? Venus is in its retrograde going to trine your sun again. So that's also improving your ability to communicate. So you're going to see that shaping up right around August 18th. And then when Venus comes back, it's going to trine that again, but that's not going to be for a little bit. But when it starts trining your descendant and your sun right around the 3rd week of September, really it's telling me that so much about the transits right now are about how you communicate. And if you're feeling kind of pulled in 2 different directions, stop, slow down, reconsider how you're communicating with someone or the form in which you're communicating. Are you texting and is texting not working or getting the point across? You know, do you need to actually sit down and talk to somebody? And definitely watch for some change that can be happening in terms of how you communicate with one of your kids. That's the other way that I could look at that, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Paula. We're going to do last call in a little less than 5 minutes. Looks like we got all of our level 3 people. So I appreciate your guys' patience. I can't always be reading the chat when you guys are asking me questions, but I go back and forth. Thanks, Jimmy. I got you. So let me give you guys a roll call, and I'll let you know everybody that I have. And then from there, I will let you know who's next. Okay. And I will say I see Lauren and Tuan. I don't have a memo from you guys, so I need that information. Okay, so this is who I have so far. We've got Jessica, Rome, Sophia, Heather, Miss Olson. How do you pronounce your first name? Is it Jet? Anne, Austin, Natalie, SR, Lauren, Tuan, Mary, Carla, Joanne, and Steven. Okay, there's a QR code right here. You have to scan that, and it takes you to the PayPal. If that doesn't work, then you can go to the link in the description, and you can go to the PayPal link. Okay, so that's who I have. I'll call your name in advance when you're coming up, so that way you guys have a heads up, okay? So Jessica, Rome, and Sophia. You guys are the ones that I'm going to be talking to. The super chat is just where you're typing. You can do that there, I think. I'm not sure how that works. And for those of you guys who are sending me your questions, as I get closer, I'll call you because I'm going to lose it in the chat. All right, so let me pull up Jessica. All right, Jessica, I have you here February 5th, 1990 at 1:38 a.m. in El Paso. So you are Scorpio rising, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Gemini. Question is, Venus Cazimi reading, what's coming towards me in regards to career or love? All right, let's talk about it. Definitely like a big question, especially for a lot of, Scorpio risings. And this is where I go back and forth between, Placidus and whole sign. By transit, Placidus is pretty damn accurate, but you could look at either one. You're going to hear for a Scorpio rising horoscope with Venus retrograde that there is a lot of re-evaluating what your status is. And whether that's, do I want to change jobs? Do I want to get into a relationship? How do I want to identify out in the world? So on and so forth. And I see for you, really the entire Venus retrograde is in your 9th. So for me, this is about how you're re-evaluating, reworking what your beliefs are about love, right? Venus is love. Venus rules committed relationships, 7th house, It's also the ruler for you of your Placidus 11th, so what your goals are. I feel like maybe there's like a lot of talking to friends and like other people about what you're looking for and where you're looking and how you're looking to meet people. Maybe you're approaching dating by looking for a friendship first. And you were one of those people in 1989 and 1990 who's having the Venus retrograde over your south node. So there's a lot of having to reevaluate the past before you move forward. Okay, so that's the key, especially over the next couple of days. Because you're going to see Venus that's going to be inching her way back towards your south node. So there's a lot of reevaluating the past, right? 2 is I also see that there's going to be some changes going on in the career front. And that's because you're having pretty soon a Mercury retrograde, which is you're reworking the way that you think and communicate about work in your 10th house. So for me, simultaneously, both of these retrogrades are working similarly because Mercury is looking at Venus and Venus is looking back at Cancer, which is the past. So in order to move forward, we have to look at what's gone on in the past, how maybe you've approached relationships in the past to move forward. And I think that possibly for you, you know, Venus retrograde means that you may go back to dating or you may change your philosophy on dating. Maybe you're trying to meet somebody who lives further away. Which I don't necessarily think is a bad move. I've seen a lot of Scorpio risings the last couple of years and had a lot of luck meeting people in other places, even if it's on the other side of town or if it's on the other side of the world. I think that the key is to look at where there needs to be a new balance, right? Because for a lot of Scorpio risings, there's been so much focus on career that part of the Venus square Uranus has been, you know, is there a need to reevaluate how much you're working or how much attention you're putting to work? And like, does your relationships need your attention a little bit more, right? Now, Venus rules your 7th house. You have Venus retrograde in the sign of Capricorn as a part of like a major Capricornian stellium in your 2nd house. So you're very Saturnian, okay? I know what that's like. I've got 4 planets in Capricorn myself. Venus also, just like you. And a lot of this is also understanding your 7th house, right? So you've got Venus retrograde, so karma in regards to love and relationships. Venus conjunct Saturn, you know, love matures as you get older. The more that you're focusing on your own personal values and investing in yourself, relationships get better. And Mercury is conjunct Venus, which represents a change and a transformation or changing directions or maybe like a little like flip-flop going on in relationships. Ironically, because Venus is tied to your 10th house lord and also Saturn, so much of your career and your relationship seems to be intertwined. So I'm wondering, like, do you meet somebody that you ultimately end up working with? Or do you end up being in a situation where you change your job or your profession and then you end up kind of meeting somebody and they go hand in hand, right? So I do think that there can be a sense of like stronger commitment. It just comes at a later date. And when you start to see outer planets making aspects to your Venus, like when Jupiter and Uranus start trining your Venus, which Uranus is already kind of doing it now, but when Jupiter starts doing that, it's going to get easier. My advice is like, you know, start trying to meet people who may be culturally diverse. Jupiter and Uranus can be people who are very diverse. Maybe it's worth trying to meet people in other places. I also feel like, you know, for me, I have Venus at 6. It wasn't until Saturn left my Venus and then Uranus started trining my Venus and that went on for 2 years. And then Jupiter started making aspects to my Venus that like a lot of my love life changed. And so you're having these transits that are coming pretty soon. My money is on changing the way that you look at what it means to be productive right now and like what it means to be successful. Then what's going to happen after you get out of the Mercury retrograde with your career stuff this fall, you're going to see an eclipse that's going to be in your whole sign's 7th house. That's going to be taking place around the 20th of October, although that can be about job changes. You can also look at when you have like the full moon that's going to be taking place in your 7th house, and that's going to be closer to the end of November. That can potentially bring some relationship stuff. But for me, my money is on when Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction and they start trining your Venus. And so that's going to be like April, pretty much like, let's say April through July next year. Equally, you're having eclipses in your 5th house. So I hope you're listening, not just to Scorpio rising horoscopes, I hope you're listening to Sagittarius as well. Because if you're listening to Sagittarius, you're going to hear with the, solar eclipses or the lunar eclipses in your 5th house, you might meet someone or something that you really fall in love with. So I do think that that's coming for you, and it is worth waiting for. Focus more on making changes with your habits and making changes with work right now, because there is something about you getting some of that stuff in alignment, and then it ends up manifesting as like a relationship coming in. And what's interesting is the 2nd house can be like, technically this is all intercepted. I don't know if you know what that means, but with Placidus, sometimes you can have a house that's swallowed up, 2 signs swallow up a house. So you've got Capricorn in the middle that's intercepted, which means all this Capricorn is a blind spot for you. So is Saturn. 2nd house can be you meet somebody at a jewelry store, you meet them at a bakery, you can meet them at a bank. So I don't know what you're doing like work-wise, but this can be about something financially. You'll hear for a whole sign Scorpio rising that this is your 3rd house. You might meet them in a car, you might meet them when you're driving somewhere, or when you're moving. You may have some connection to them even online. So that's possible, but it would likely come out of nowhere very unexpectedly. And you may want to go and look at your progressed Venus. That might be something else that you want to look at as well. But definitely by next spring, you're going to start seeing those trines come through. And in mid-December, we're going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to be starting in Capricorn, and it's going to go through Sag. So another time where you may be reevaluating things in regards to your relationships could also potentially be right around mid-December of this year. But for right now, it's more like work related. It's about making that conscious decision to go, what do I want to be out in the world? Do I want to be somebody's girlfriend? Do I want to be a CEO? Do I want to be a mom? Do I want to get married? Do I want to stay single? Focus on that title first, and then the rest is going to kind of follow, and that'll be more so December, January, and April, May of next year. Good luck. Okay, we've got Rome, Sophia, and then Heather. And let's see, Rome says, tell me what I need to know. My friend, I have a lot going on. I'm trying to get a new job at a copper mine or a weed clinic. Health stuff, relationship stuff, my head is spinning. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Copper is more going to be a combination of Venus. So interesting. So 6th house is your workspace. Okay, so your office space or where there may be like other employees. And you just recently had Mercury conjunct Venus. So, talking about working at a copper mine. And that trine was to Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, which is natural elements, materials. One thing I'll tell you is with the Mercury retrograde, there is going to be a sense of like sorting and sifting through what work works for you, what's going to pay the best, like what schedule is going to work best for you. Like what you're going to resonate with the most. Natural materials also can have connections to 10 degrees or to Capricorn. And so what I like is that Mercury is going to trine your South Node. And because you have South Node in Capricorn, I feel like you're going to look at this and you're going to go like, do I want to do something that's going to be like super physically demanding, right? Like I know that you're into health and fitness and stuff, but you might be like asking yourself, is that really what I want to do? I will say that your 2nd house lord, okay, so Venus is in the 6th. So being somebody who is a worker pertaining to things underground, moon, and copper or materials, Venus. So like you could totally do it. The question is going to be with all of these in conjunct your ascendant and the North Node, do you want to do something that's going to be that physically demanding? Are you potentially at risk? Could it be dangerous because the 6th house could be accidents? I look at the sextiles to your 8th house and I go, well, what are the benefits, right? Is it going to pay better? Do you get health insurance? Are you going to get like profit sharing? Anything like that, right? I'm just throwing all that out there. On the flip side, healing, caring, herbal type of things, I look at this and I go, oh, that could also be Virgo, right? So things that are grown can be the 2nd or the 4th house. So you have that Venus, moon. I think of comfort and what's going to be more comfortable. The mind schedule is whack, but the other job works better for my workout. Okay. And I do feel like you're going to be wanting to do something because Saturn rules career and it's in your 12th house. That's going to work better for your work schedule, your sleep schedule, your mental health, and something that's also going to allow you to do some kind of work that can be like medicinal work behind the scenes. So also, like, you know, if you end up doing some kind of like cannabis business, are they going to have you like stocking and doing inventory? You know, are you going to have to be in a back room doing that stuff? That may come up. I feel like the South Node in Capricorn is not going to want to do work in a mine. That's just my 2 cents. Because that North Node is in Cancer, you're like, I want to focus more on like what's comfortable and what feels good and like what comes naturally to me and what works with my routine and like can still help people. So really it's up to you. I would definitely expect with the Mercury retrograde here, a lot of back and forth with like, do I want this or do I want that? And right when you think you've made up your mind, like another potential could definitely pop up. Like there could be another like job that could pop up as well. I would watch for when Mars, which rules your chart, comes into a trine with Pluto. So you might start feeling the trine around the 18th of August, but Mars is going to officially trine Pluto, which might give you the opportunity to commit to something around the 23rd of August. And Mercury goes retrograde right over your sun. So you're going to be like, wait a second, they told me it was going to be this schedule, but now it's going to be that. So just keep in the back of your mind that likely you're going to choose a job, but you're going to find out that there is some kind of schedule change, or like it's not exactly the schedule they gave you, or they're bringing you in and they're like training you before you have your full-time schedule. So there's still going to be a pivot and a change. Now Mercury is going to retrograde and it's going to trine Jupiter, which means like for whatever reason, if you do decide that you want to call the other job back and see if it's still available, you may be able to. I also feel like this is going to be about you like reassessing your skills and like what you know about the job that you end up taking. And if you do end up doing something like working for like a cannabis company, I wonder if there's something other than just doing like the retail portion of it. Like, is it possible that you're like, hey, I want to help create social media for education, or I want to help with a marketing campaign, or you know, if I find other ways to be able to kind of like drum up business for this company, like could I get a piece of the pie? That is possible. You might consider that. But I definitely feel like so much of the retrograde and the trines to your second house is like, yeah, I have money coming in, I'm working, you know, things kind of feel good. More of the relationship stuff, you know, it's both a combination of Venus retrograde in your 5th, so you might feel like you want something that's a little bit more casual or having a little bit more fun, or you know, slowing down potentially in certain connections because you're focusing more on working and making money. And it doesn't mean that you don't want love. It's just you're focusing on you right now. And like you're not willing to override your schedule as it stands. Also, you know, a Mercury retrograde in your sign, you're going to be more self-focused. So there can also be a sense of being like, I'm adjusting to working and all these changes. So like, I'll get back to you when I get back to you. You're going to see more like with Mars going into your 7th house that could bring more action from relationships. So Mars is going to go into Libra. It will officially go into your 7th house closer to September the 8th, where you could definitely find yourself hanging out more with a relationship because you are Mars. And you're going to see Mars also square the nodes. So I definitely feel like maybe the end of August is more adjusting to this work schedule. And then when Mars starts to come into a square at the nodes, you're like, okay, by the beginning of September, you know, I've spent, you know, 2 or 3 weeks doing this. Like now I've got the swing of it. Like now I can hang out more. The one thing that you want to watch is probably when Mars is in your 7th house and Venus goes direct. So definitely the first 10 days of September, I think you're going to notice a definitive shift in regards to romantic relationships for the better. And you're going to see that Mars and Venus are going to be kind of sextiling each other mid-month in September. And also your birthday's on a new moon. So it's like, wow, there's so much that's changing for you. It's probably going to feel like in this next month, there's a lot of wrapping stuff up and closing things out. Because when you have a new moon that's on your birthday in conjunction to your sun, it's like a complete fresh start. So, you know, a lot of what's taking place the next couple of weeks is going to be about kind of wrapping things up. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. Definitely a lot of action relationship-wise this fall, though. Like, you're going to see this with Venus going direct. You're going to see this with Venus squaring Uranus around the end of September. And when Mars conjuncts the South Node, I have a hunch at the end of September, there's a lot of maybe going back and forth and deciding whether or not you want to reconnect with someone or if you want to cut someone off. And then you're going to have that solar eclipse there as well. So September and October is very busy in the relationship zone. I think right now your time is better spent being like, let me figure out the work stuff and figure out something that works for my schedule. So that way I can kind of get acclimated and then I can begin to start working like relationship stuff in. But yeah, your natal Venus as well, you know, Saturn is retrograde. So it's moving out of that opposition with your Venus. Eventually, this is more next year, you know, you could be put in a situation where you have to make a decision about a relationship because of your schedule. So you need somebody who's going to understand that, you know, you're not going to dedicate all of your free time to them, that you're focusing on working, you're trying to get resources straight, you're trying to also maintain your health, and that you have to have balance. And, you know, with all of those planets that you have, those heavy hitters in your 7th house, like partners can be very demanding, or that you maybe have made a lot of sacrifices career-wise or personally for partners. And so with the South Node going through this part of your chart right now, let's say between now and the end of the year, there's a lot of clearing that out, being like, I'm not going to be a people pleaser. I'm doing what's best for me. If people get flustered by that, it is what it is. You know, people come and people go. Like, I'm not falling back into that pattern. And it seems that you're very adamant about that between now and the new year. So, you know, the ones that are meant to stay are the ones that are going to be understanding that you're kind of getting some things on track. And the right person will wait and they will understand. But I think that for the better part of the next 6 months, this is kind of the way that it's going to be. Because to me, it seems like you're so focused on your goals right now, especially as you're getting into the new year, when you're really going to see a lot of like building momentum when it comes to your resources. Hopefully that's helpful and giving you a little bit of direction with that stuff, Rome. Way to go with the job. Awesome. Let me know how it goes. Those of you guys who are just tuning in, thank you for watching. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Readings are now closed right now, but you can still hang out for a little bit if you'd like. I'm going to take Sophia, Heather, and Miss Olson. You guys are all next. Let's pull up Sophia. You're welcome. Okay, so we've got Sophia, who is a Cap rising, Sun in Aries, Moon in Libra. Spicy. Sophia says, Venus Cazimi, 41381. I enrolled to finish my mental health specialist degree. I just also had to invest for an important position. So I just had an interview for an important position in managing that has growth. I have also been doing my own business on the side, which has had no substantial growth since 2020. I don't know if I should do the job and school, just one or the other. I've been thinking I need to ditch my business altogether. Sincerely, in a pressure cooker. All right, I got you. Well, thus is the dilemma that somebody who has this much, you know, cardinal in your chart faces. Cardinal planets are so active. They're constantly having to do something or initiate things. So this is something I hear a lot of from people who kind of have some of these oppositions and these T-squares that you kind of have. The truth is, when I look at where your life is going, it's really interesting. I read Placidus, so just a heads up, you're going to hear for a lot of Capricorn risings, oh, the South Node, you know, is going through your 10th house of career. You're making some career changes. The North Node is going through your 4th house, which is about home and family and your private life. And so some of that may resonate with you. It's a little tweaked because actually most of your Aries is in your 3rd house, which is more communicating, learning, you know, doing things that involve computers and writing and reading. And the South Node is going through the 9th house, which means that there can be a sense of observing and maybe ditching or letting things go that relate to 9th house things: higher education, travel, law, legality. So being a Capricorn rising, I would say, with the transits that are getting ready to happen here pretty soon, if you have growth in your career, if you have job changes and it works for you, great, but that's like icing on the cake. That does not, to me, seem like the most important thing, believe it or not. 2 is, I think of like Aries being the initiator of doing it first, having their own thing, you know, being independent. I'm not saying that you have to keep the job that you've been working towards, especially if you feel like that hasn't really been working. But I feel like school and work, to me, does not seem cohesive. Because the North Node's going through the 3rd house. It's about learning. You know, do you have to learn on campus, or is this something that you would be doing like from a distance? Are you going to be doing this digitally? In my mind, the South Node is also going through the part of your chart that's about higher education. Now, career for you is more Mars or Pluto. And the North Node is going to come into conjunction with your Sun and your Mars. So like, look, you're going to keep getting offers for work. Likely it's going to be things that you could do independently, like away, you know, from an office space, or something that you can kind of do like remotely, or some kind of hybrid. I do think that even if you're not feeling this right now, you're going to feel this big time once we get to the eclipses in the fall, where it's very obvious to me that like either you're being pushed to make a decision, or like something like that is going down. You're going to have a solar eclipse that's conjunct Pluto, which is your career ruler, with the South Node. So that makes me feel like you may initiate and actually start school, but it is possible as the South Node is crossing that you realize by the end of the year that you're like, whoa, I'm juggling too much. I've got too much going on. So if that's something that you feel like is potential, I would say, you know, yeah, that's definitely something that I would have concerns about, especially considering Mars is going to be on your midheaven. So it may be kind of signaling that potentially there may be a situation where you feel like you have to cut something because you can't do both. The North Node being in conjunction to your Sun and Mars and Mercury is basically saying it's all about making a focus with learning. Now, if you have a business that's, let's say, like digital or online, or if you have a website or something that you're writing or something that you're doing independently, you may actually find that there is like a bit of like a revamping that's going on here. A lot of that's going to depend on like when you launch the business and the business chart. But I don't feel as optimistic about being able to do both, to be really honest with you, looking at that opposition. You're somebody with that Saturn that's exalted, which is great. Saturn conjunct Jupiter, great. In the 9th house, obviously from like a karmic perspective, you really value education and school and, you know, and learning and making sure that you have experience and that you have like a background. That's a very kind of 9th house signature. And I wonder, like, as the South Node is going through there, are you going to be given opportunities career-wise that could be really wonderful, that would potentially tempt you, or maybe try to convince you to be like, okay, maybe I'm going to break with going to school, or you might do it for a period of time and then realize like, well, this job's paying really well, you know, do I leave? So you need to be prepared for that, because I do think that that could be something that could come for you more so in the spring next year, when that new moon in Libra becomes a full moon. So you'll have a full moon eclipse that's going to be around the end of March of 2024 in conjunction to your Jupiter, which makes me feel like you may make it about this long before realizing like, okay, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I've got other things that are kind of like setting up for me right now. Just food for thought. If you were to try to revamp your business though, I would say that like this eclipse is great for that, and Jupiter and Uranus coming into your 5th house is also great for that. So it is possible that you're like, look, if I just want to go to school, and even though that job is tempting, but I really want to focus on finishing this particular program, I would say, okay, stick with the program, try to find ways to actually work with these eclipses in the 9th house and learn more about marketing so you could market your business and finish your degree. But you're always going to be in this predicament because you have so many planets in the 3rd house, which is quick learning, information, communication, and the 9th house, which is like long-term education, going and getting degrees, spending time. and you're always kind of feeling like you're being pulled back and forth. And I think the way out of that is go and get the education that you want to get and be done with it. So that way you feel like you can travel more, you know, maybe work remotely if that's what you want to do with all those planets in the 3rd house. You're very much, you know, in Aries, Sun and Mars in conjunction. You're just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. But the oppositions, it's almost like maybe you've rushed into things in the past and then you're like, oh, I probably should have finished that. Aries placements don't finish things. And then it makes you realize, okay, now I got to go back to school and like, you know, now I've figured out what direction I'm going in. So to avoid all of that, you know, pick a lane, stay committed, especially emotionally, because you're Moon Pluto, to what it is that you want to learn to make this back and forth kind of even out a little bit better, right? And like, look, in 9 years, when you have the transits that are going through your 9th house, you might do the same thing again. It's hard to say. But definitely with Jupiter going through, you know, Aries recently, I think that this has brought more attention to you actually being able to go back to school and be able to do something online remotely, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. So let's see, you've got Heather. Let me pull Heather up. All right, so I've got Heather J, January 23rd, 81 at 9:03 p.m. So you're Virgo rising, Virgo moon, sun in Aquarius. What's up, Heather? All right. She says, the Venus retrograde, I believe, is hitting me hard the last couple weeks. I sprained my ankle pretty bad about 3 weeks ago, so I was literally stuck for about 2 weeks. Although I enjoyed the alone time, I was able to work remote. Now my mental health seems affected by me continuing to remain secluded. On a positive note, on the Aquarius full moon, I had a job interview and I finished my 3rd final round Wednesday. It would be a step forward career-wise as well as a higher salary. I should know something this week. I work in radiation oncology when Venus retrograde shadow began. I actually reached out again to my daughter's father, which had not spoken since summer. We broke up in 2020. It's been hard since then, as I wish sometimes we could get back together, which I have brought her to see him, and he came to my house for her birthday. We're going to stay with him for a week. She lives near the beach. Okay. So, a couple things. Sorry to hear about your ankle. That's a bummer. I will say Aquarius, calves and ankles. Bones is Capricorn, but calves and ankles definitely is a weak point for Aquarius placements. And you still have Saturn in your 6th house of health, so it's not unusual to have some health hangups here. Now, interesting stuff. Couple things. One is, you know, Venus has been obviously retrograde in your 12th house, right? So that feels alone, secluded, reevaluating, reminiscing, rehashing. And from an Aquarius perspective, it's 7th house. So thinking about what's ended, thinking about the past, you know, feeling kind of sequestered and alone. All of these things definitely make sense. When do we usually see, you know, like accidents and things that can happen? Well, when you see squares maybe to your 6th house lord. So it looks like transit Venus has been in a square with Uranus. So maybe being a little clumsy, 3rd house, you know, tripping over something, falling. So that square I would watch. I wonder, like, I'm a big believer that sometimes things happen astrologically to try to get you to work things out. Like, you know, pain is something that grounds us to the planet. So if we're not working through something, we'll have a health issue or an ailment that we need to work through. So would you have really taken the time to work through some of these emotions had there not been an accident? Maybe, maybe not. I, for one, would say you want to watch when other planets come into a square with Uranus just to make sure that you're like really healing. Equally, you're going to have this Mercury retrograde in your 1st house, so it's about the body healing. So let's take a look at some of these aspects here really quick. I want you to be mindful of when the sun squares your natal Uranus. because that can also bring up some health stuff. So that's right around August 22nd, 23rd. That'll be with the moon. Then you're going to have Mercury going retrograde in your first house, so the body is healing. This is also about rethinking, reworking the way that you communicate. And then you're going to have the sun come in opposition to Saturn in a full moon. So I'm hoping that you're feeling like on the up and up by about the 30th of August, when you have a full moon in your 6th house. Still, you're going to see the sun come into conjunction with Mercury, so they're still feeling it out until about September 5th. So that could be another, okay, it could take that long for you to be feeling better. Mercury is your chart ruler, it rules your body, and the sun can be healing. It's kind of hard also when planets go through Virgo with a chart like this right now, because planets are coming into your first house where you're also doing a lot of reflecting and like with yourself. Square Neptune, feeling kind of lonely or reminiscing about past relationships, and then in opposition to Neptune. To be honest with you, I feel like there could be a lot of like back and forth energy about what you want and feeling a little confused about what you want. I feel inclined to tell you, like, I know you got Venus in Capricorn, so I don't think you get too like lost in, you know, emotions when it comes to relationships. Venus in your 5th is nice, and then the trine to your moon in your ascendant is nice. I think you have a good understanding of what you need. You have Venus in opposition to Ceres. I don't know if you know what that means, but Ceres basically deals with loss and grief and separation. She also deals with like nurturing and motherhood and things in regards to, you know, taking care of something. But she's very much associated with loss and grief. So sometimes people who have Venus in opposition to Ceres, they have this reoccurring pattern of, oh, everything I love leaves, you know, or it's gone. And so I think that something I would just kind of think about a little bit while these transits are going on in Virgo, trining your Venus, is, are you feeling lonely and having a moment of like weakness because you're like, oh, I wish we could have made it work, and like not really seeing that other person for who they are? Because you got Saturn coming up onto your 7th house, you've got planets opposing Neptune. Like if you know it's a situation where that person is not ideal for you, don't overly idealize them and try to convince yourself maybe that like, oh, you know, maybe it can be different. Like just be careful, especially with Venus retrograde in the 12th house, because Venus wants something to finally be released here, right? And it can be something that's like really emotional, or it happens in a dream. When you have a more positive transit to your natal Jupiter, right, or maybe even Neptune, things will get easier. Next year, you're going to have Saturn go into your 7th house, which is going to be a defining moment for relationships, or like significant people can show up. And you're going to have Saturn oppose your moon and square your Neptune, which means like come the spring of 2024, you really want to make sure that you're very clear about what direction you're going in relationships, and that you're not getting involved with people who don't know what they want, who are kind of like leaving you hanging, right? Because likely you're going to be in a situation where a relationship is setting up, but you guys are kind of in a bit of like a situation where you have to figure out, you know, what you're doing when it comes to your home life. Now, Jupiter and Uranus are also going to meet, and if you guys, I don't know if you guys were married or not, but you know, in astrology, if you live with somebody, if you have a kid, that's like a marriage. Like we more see it as like that kind of a union, not technically a marriage, like legal, that would be 9th house. But if you already burned one of these, having a kid with somebody, your second would be the 9th, and Jupiter and Uranus are going to meet. So to be honest with you, like next year, it does seem very possible or very likely that you're going to have an opportunity to really go deeper into a relationship, but you want to be clear about, you know, what it is that you want. Look for the healing to take place over the next month. And I think that I would really be watching this back and forth that you're having with your ex, because probably right around the time that Venus and Saturn come into opposition, you're going to realize like, oh no, this is probably not good for me. That's going to be closer to October. And I don't want to see you being in a situation where it's like you're building towards that and then you're like, oh, you know, this is like another blow. October 10th. And I would say maybe through the 13th. And then you're going to see another transit when Venus is in your first house in opposition to Neptune, where there's a little longing too in November. But you could definitely get like back on the horse and be dating again. I could definitely see a lot of opportunities for that taking place when Mercury is, you know, going into Capricorn, although it'll retrograde in December. And I'm also liking when Mars goes into Capricorn. Not a lot of people, I'm going to make a video on this. If the North Node is in Aries, guys, when Mars moves into its ruling signs, so when it's in Scorpio this fall, it's going to be, I think, better. When it's in Capricorn, it's in Exalted, it's like killer. And then we have to wait, obviously, until Mars gets into Aries next year. But I could see this being like a really romantic time for you. Mars crossing your Venus the second half of January, Exalted Mars. And doing a little dating. Looks like you're going to have a solar return here with Mars in conjunction to your Venus. That's a big deal. So to me, it's looking like a little bit better once you get past like November, right? My recommendation with Venus retrograde in your 12th house right now is start doing meditations on love and healing and past life stuff and like letting go of some of this karmic stuff. It'll definitely help. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Heather. So we have Miss Olson, we have Anne, Austin, and then Natalie. Oh, you know what I should say? I know we have Lavender here, and she was a super chat. So let me get her in here really quick. So we're going to do Lavender, and then Miss Olson, Anne, and Austin. I did not forget about you. Let's go and look at your question. You're welcome. Lavender says, hey Candace, curious what I can look forward to, expect with the Cazimi or anything generally. So I've got you here 3/1/92, 1:29 p.m. in Milwaukee. All right. She's there. She's waiting. All right. So Cancer rising, Sun in Pisces, Moon in Aquarius. And the Cazimi taking place for you is right here in your second house. So second house, money, resources, self-esteem, investments, right? What you possess. Venus likes being in the second house. So, you know, Venus retrograde in conjunction to the sun makes me feel like something good is being given to you. Like you're about to receive something that could be valuable. Venus rules your fourth house. So if you have recently missed something, if you misplaced something, if you lost something, especially in the house, it might come back to you. I feel like this is about also like wealth because it's a Scorpio degree. So you're realizing like you have something very valuable in the home. Maybe you're reassessing something about the style or the design or the decor of your space. I could also see this as like you finding some kind of valuable opportunity to make money, or maybe even a job opportunity that might come from a friend, right? Because Venus rules your 11th house. And that square is interesting because these are financial houses. Second house is what you possess, fifth house is chances, eighth house is other people's money, 11th house is gains. So to me, and maybe a lot of this has to do with the North Node in your career zone, you know, maybe you're trying to find new ways to make money and you're like, I'm just trying to make changes in, you know, the way that I'm handling resources and what I'm spending money on. And, you know, maybe something comes back to me, maybe something, some kind of karmic goodie you end up getting, right? Now you're going to hear for Pisces that this is taking place in your sixth house. So could it be a new job opportunity? Could it be that, you know, you go into work and somebody gives you flowers or somebody, you know, brings you some pastries or somebody gives you a gift? Sure, that could happen. Or that something good is given to you because of some kind of, you know, hard work that you've been, you know, putting forth. I think that's very possible. The second house is personal style too. So something I would say with your personal style being there, not a time to be like, I'm going to go and buy some jewelry or get some new cosmetics. Like, no, let's wait. Something is ending and restarting right now. So there's something new that's likely going to emerge when it comes to your values, your resources, or your possessions.
And with Venus in opposition to your Venus and your Saturn, whoa, that makes me feel like there's a lot of being like, other people aren't giving me what I need, I got to give it to myself. And really focusing on that and making that like the priority. You know, second house is pleasure. So it's like what you want, what smells good, tastes good, feels good. That's what you're really focusing on. And maybe you're looking at having more quality in your life, right? Over quantity. It's the other way of looking at it. But I would imagine, yeah, kind of irritating. When you have Venus in opposition to Venus, you're like longing for something. And when you have Venus in opposition to Saturn, something feels like it's being kind of held back. So I'm wondering if you were like, you know, hoping that you were going to get some kind of resource and bring something in and you haven't gotten it. Now you're like, okay, now I have to rearrange something about my resources. And it's making you realize like, you know, nobody's going to show up and provide for me but me. I have to make sure I'm doing it for me. And a lot of it's also treating yourself, right? So my advice is if you're feeling some of that money crunch or trying to kind of figure out new ways of being able to bring in or drum up resources, put something sweet out for Venus, right? It's Friday. Everybody watching this can do this now because the Cazimi is tomorrow. If you guys are sitting at home drinking wine, or if you're having some chocolate, or if you're baking cookies or whatever, put something out for Venus. Venus likes sweet things. In particular, in Leo, she likes things that are like golden. So I'm sure everybody's got an orange or a banana or some honey laying around, right? You can put a little shot of something out for her, some kind of alcohol, maybe a piece of gold jewelry, some yellow flowers that you might have, you know, growing in your garden or in your backyard. Really simple ways to be able to give offerings to Venus, asking her, please give me a little bit of like, you know, like spare me in the midst of everybody else having some kind of upsets in love and money, like, you know, help me out here. Cool, you could do that. Anything Venus related right now, that's what you guys want to do. And what's interesting is Venus is in a square to Uranus, which means like you could see fortune turn like that. One little simple change that you're doing creatively could have a pretty significant or substantial change to your resources. I was listening to a Vedic astrologer the other day that was saying that, I think it was like between the 3rd and the 19th of August, if you're having issues or if you're like a Venus ruled chart, she said just take rice, put like a bowl of rice by your bed. And if you keep it by your bed, just under your bed, by your bed, whatever. And then after the 19th, she said, go and throw it out in nature or put it somewhere where birds are going to eat it. And I was like, that's interesting. But it makes sense because it's about nourishment and, you know, it's seen as like a luxury, right? Rice. So I don't know. Maybe we'll try it. Maybe I'll put some rice out tonight. We'll see if that helps. But for you, I think a lot of this is about reinvesting that energy in yourself. And finding new ways that you can be able to kind of make changes in the way that you're making money or how you're handling resources. And what you'll see after this new moon that's coming in is that in about a month, when Venus hits that degree again, you're going to go, oh, I'm glad I made that change because now I feel more so better supported, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so now we've got Miss Olson, Ann, Austin, and then Natalie. So let me pull this up. There we go. Lavender says, I'll grab some yellow flowers. Good idea. I'm making lemon tiramisu. That's my offering for Venus. Isn't that funny? I didn't even realize it till now, but I've been like putting that whole recipe together, making sure I have everything. I'll post pictures of it. Hopefully it comes out good. All right, so Miss Olson, I have you here November 19th, 1964, 1:45 p.m. What stands out the most? What stands out as the most important for me to know? That's a good question. So you got a Pisces rising, Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Taurus. Well, my eyes go to like the angles in your chart right now, big time. Obviously Jupiter's your ruler, right? You're a little short of your Jupiter return this year. You're gonna have that next year. but you're getting close to your Jupiter return. So definitely you're starting to feel the opportunities that are going to be brewing for you in terms of new money and resources. It's in your second house. You've got a full moon that's about to hit your ascendant. And that's going to be really interesting because we're going to have that new moon that's going to be in, obviously in Leo, in your 6th house. So I'm wondering, are you reworking something about your health, your diet, your habits, your work? I hope so, because with a retrograde here, with Saturn retrograde on your ascendant, and then a full moon on your ascendant, girl, let's look at that. There we go. So mark your calendar for August 30th. Okay, take it easy around that time, because that full moon is going to be in direct opposition to your Mars. And to me, it's representing some kind of tension, maybe between you and another person. At the same time, you're having a Mercury retrograde through your house of relationships, reworking the way that you communicate and connect with others or commit to others. And Mercury is going to be in conjunction to your Pluto and your natal Uranus. I noticed that you have Chiron in opposition to Uranus and Pluto. So I would imagine with that signature, part of your Saturn in the 12th is like, I have static with other people sometimes. And there can be some intensity going on with relationships or people that can be like a little too much for me sometimes, you know, Pluto, Uranus in the 7th. And that sometimes you feel like hurt or wounded, Chiron on the ascendant. Part of your Saturn transit on your ascendant is about restructuring who you are post-second Saturn return. So to me, it seems like you've kind of like been more or less in the shadows or going through some healing stuff or working on yourself and kind of isolating a little bit. And like as Saturn's coming into your conjunction with your ascendant again in the new year, you're redefining yourself outside of relationships with other people. So there can definitely be some stuff getting kicked up with a Mercury retrograde, not communicating as well with other people in your 7th house, but also reconnecting from people from the past, reconnecting with clients and partners and, you know, healthcare related people. I always get a little iffy about a full moon on the ascendant, a retrograde in the 1st, and a retrograde in the 6th. So for me, what's really kind of getting kicked up is like, just take care of your health, you know? Equally, you were born on a full moon, so that can also be another indication of some of the static that you have between the 1st and the 7th house, is that obviously moon in Taurus is great, moon conjunct Jupiter is really great, but the opposition to the sun and Neptune tells me that sometimes there is this really kind of intense energy that you have of, you know, completions or things, you know, being suddenly brought to your awareness about what's not working. Technically, this is in your 2nd and your 8th house. So it can be, you know, financial situations. It can be about resources. It can be about what you have versus what other people want, that kind of stuff. Please remove your hair from the mic. Okay, sorry. But I think that what really this period offers you with some of the retrogrades in your 7th is the opportunity to kind of like clear the air, right? Clearing the air with other people. So that way you can feel like, okay, there's nothing that's like kind of being hidden, right? And then I would, personally, I would start listening or going and getting some resources, finding out about your Jupiter return in the 2nd house next year. It's good for your money. For Jupiter transit your moon, it's also good for your home and your emotions and possibly your possessions, buying property, you know, renovating a home, that could be a thing, expanding a home, you know, getting some kind of cosmic goodies, and learning about Uranus coming into conjunction with your moon. So radical changes, transformations emotionally within the home front, and then Uranus in opposition to your sun. I mean, like, woof. What's going on? Are you planning on like going and buying a lot of land? You know, I mean, is that something that you're thinking about? As Saturn crosses your ascendant and opposes planets in your 7th house next year, you're not going to be taking any shit from anybody. So if you're in a bit of a back and forth relationship, I could definitely see you being in a turning point where you're like, if this isn't working, then, you know, I'm reinvesting in myself, or I'm looking at, you know, buying a space or getting into a space that's going to bring me more support or security. That seems to be another theme. Let me know. Let me know how that retrograde and that full moon. That just looks like a doozy the end of August. Retrograde and a full moon here. Good luck. Hello, Elaine. How are you doing? I have Anne, Austin, Natalie, and then SR. Carla says, I'm a Leo rising. I went to the farmer's market and I just bought yellow flowers. They're in my room. I put pennies in water and all that you said, that made me cry. I don't know. Oh, she bought a farm. Okay. Are you going back there? Are you thinking about reinvesting in it? Are you making changes? Are you going to build something? You want to sell it? It's going to be pretty valuable next year, my dear, with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. All right, so let me pull up Anne. Thank you for the mimosa money, Anne. That sounds like a good way to celebrate Venus. That's kind of golden, right? Let's see. Where is your chart? I know you're here somewhere. Did I add you? I could have sworn I did. Maybe not. Okay, let me put you in here. Let me see if I can find you here. Sorry, I lost your comment. I know you sent it. There we go. 4464. Okay, when, who, where, my future love story single. Let's find out. You're welcome. Okay, let's see what's going on with Anne and her love life. Anne, is this correct? Was it 2:10 a.m.? Now I'm second guessing myself. Yeah, okay, or 12:10 a.m. Okay, so Sag rising, moon in Capricorn, sun in Aries. She says, who, what, where, how, where are they? Well, let's take a look. So Mercury rules your 7th house of relationships. You do have Saturn that's coming in for a trine to your North Node, so that can definitely be bringing people in. Wrapping up your 2nd Saturn return, so hopefully that's going well thus far. And we would need to see something magical happening with your Mercury. We're kind of actually seeing that right now, actually, Anne. So Saturn is in a sextile with your Mercury. Okay. Oh, actually, it's over here. There we go. And right now, Saturn is in your 2nd house. So technically, for a Sag rising, you know, you're going to hear, oh, it's in your 4th house. Maybe you feel like you're stuck at home a lot. There's a lot of home responsibilities. But the sextile to Mercury is like making the time to get out and about and connect with people, right? Now, in my mind, even though Saturn's going to go retrograde, it's still sextiling your Mercury, so it's there. You see more action going on in your relationships, though, in my mind, more when you have, you know, planets going through your 5th house or maybe through your 7th house. So most of the planets are transiting right now through here. If you are going to connect with somebody, you know, Mercury trine Jupiter, Mercury and Mars kind of doing things with Jupiter and Uranus, your best bet is meeting people in other places. You know, meeting people who may potentially be in other cities, at afar, connecting with them, or doing some traveling. For a Sag rising, you're going to hear potential changes on the work front or the professional zone throughout the next couple of weeks. And so if you are somebody who's out working, keep an eye out. I mean, I could definitely see the trine to your Mercury is like you could meet somebody potentially through work. But I would want to see an outer planet that's aspecting your Mercury. So I'm thinking when Jupiter retrogrades back into conjunction with your Mercury, and Saturn is direct and it's sextiling. It's looking, the closer that you're getting to the end of the year, the better that this is going to get. Now, another time that you might see something pop up also could be that eclipse at the end of October. So you're going to have a lunar eclipse in Taurus at 5 degrees in conjunction to your Mercury, conjunct Jupiter. So Mercury is partners, Jupiter is you, and then an eclipse is bringing something together. So make a note of the end of October. I kind of feel like that's when there could actually be a turning point and something significant could be popping up. We also see Venus trine Jupiter as well. And Venus, once again, is in the 9th house. So how are you meeting people? Are you willing to meet people outside of your comfort zone in other places who might be a little bit further away? You're a Sag rising. I think you're open to that. Now, something else you'll hear, also being a Sag rising, is the eclipses coming in through Aries can also be setting the stage for romantic opportunities. So this doesn't even have to be an eclipse. The full moon that you're going to have in Aries can also do that. That's going to be the end of September. And you're going to have a full moon conjunct your Mars, ruler of the 4th house. So it almost is like, it looks as if love is being brought to come and visit you, you know? Or maybe are you going home and visiting family, 4th house? Is there a possibility that you're connecting with somebody who's a little bit younger than you? Maybe. But that's also kind of happening for you at the end of September. Your natal Mercury, though, in the 4th tells me that when you are home or you're closer to home or anything like that, like you potentially end up like meeting people. So I don't know. I wonder if you're doing a little traveling or something on the East Coast, that ends up kind of monopolizing is connecting with someone, right? And you have Mercury conjunct Jupiter. So you're very drawn to people who are very chatty. You're drawn to people who might, you know, speak more than one language. You're drawn to people who like to travel, who are very Jupiterian, right? They like to like share and talk about things and tell stories and have a lot of fun. And being a Sag rising and having all this Aries, I think you would do very well with somebody who's got some kind of Sag in their chart. I think that would be nice. I'm a fan of that. I like people who have, you know, planets on your ascendant sign, because I think that you're going to kind of help each other go in the direction that you need to go. Or, you know, if you're finding somebody maybe that's got Mercury in Aries or, you know, Venus in Aries conjunct your Sun and your Mars, that can be a good combo as well. And something else that you have working in your back pocket really over the next 2 years is transit Pluto's coming into a trine with your Venus. And next year, Jupiter will be in your 7th house. So when you see Jupiter go into Gemini, I'm looking at like when Jupiter and Mars come together, that's also a very romantic time for you next summer. And that looks like there's a lot of action going on potentially with relationships. And then the North Node is conjunct your Sun and your Mars. Yeah, Mercury in Aries, Venus in Aries. Although good luck with Venus in Aries. That's not the easiest placement, but because you're a Sun and Mars, I think you would probably like that, and Venus would sextile your natal Venus, you know? But for sure, you might want to think back to like whenever Jupiter has gone through Gemini. So the last time you had that was like 2012. And the time before that looks like that was 2001. And then the time before that looks like it was like 1989. Those years are Jupiter years. And I bring it up not because it's just your 7th house, but Jupiter is your chart ruler. So when it goes into Gemini, the problem with Jupiter in Gemini is that there is this sense of like, you're going to get the people who are going to be kind of flippant, or they're going to kind of, you know, they're kind of back and forth. Perhaps you're going to see even more when Jupiter goes into his exaltation when it's in Cancer. But definitely 2024, 2025, yeah, you're looking at a lot more opportunities in regards to your career, your relationship. But the challenge is that you're going to have Pluto, That's going to be squaring your Jupiter. So I feel like you're going to maybe run into some people, once again, that live in other places. Right? David knows. He's a Sag rising. He's got Venus and Aries too. He's got lots of those placements. Hopefully that's helpful. I will definitely buy mimosas with your donation, Anne. I appreciate it. Let's see. So I've got Austin, Natalie, SR. I'm wondering, am I hitting that place in the readings where I have to start plugging in people? Let's see. I might have to, because some of you guys came after I started. Yeah, I think so. Okay, you guys want to give me like 5 minutes? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got to put in some charts. Then we will take a look at these people. Lauren and Tuan. I don't know if you guys sent that stuff, or if the moderator, can you look and see if you can find Lauren and Tuan's info? I'm going to start plugging these charts in really quick because I need your guys' stuff. Cue the awesome music. That's funny. Oh, you did it in a separate one. Okay. Let me see if I can find it for you. I don't know why I didn't see it, but maybe I have to reload it. Do you have the birth information for Jimmy? That's what I need. And then let's see, Lauren. Okay, now I see it. Thank you.
27th, 96. Let's see. Hey Cassie, can you give me your city and state, please? If I can get that, that would be helpful. Thank you. Lisa Dawn, can I get your birth information, please? I'm almost done, guys, sorry. And then for Samantha, can I get your time? Samantha, are you here? I need your time. Michelle, I need to know where you're born. Samantha. Okay, I need to get this information. Michelle, I need to know what city you're in. If I don't have this info, I'm not going to be able to give you guys a reading.
Thank you. 6:20 a.m. Pittsburgh, thank you. No worries, you're good. Hang out for a little bit. I'll call you when you're up. Okay, let's take a look. So let me go back, see who we've got here. No, I need your natal chart, not your relocation. You're good. What's up, Enchanted? You want to cash in on your monthly? I can put you in here if you want. When would be a good time to move? So I've got you here, Aries rising, right? All right, so let's take your chart. So we'll do you, Enchanted, and then Austin, Natalie, SR. You guys are all on deck, okay? So when and where would be a good to move? Well, interesting timing you've got here. So first of all, obviously that's going to be a hot topic, right? Moon's coming into your 4th house. No, it's okay. It's fine. One thing that I would say is where you're always going to want to follow your moon. So you can look at your astrocartography. You can look at your moon line. Kind of dicey, to be honest with you, because this year going into next year, you're going to see Pluto squaring your moon. So likely a move is inevitable, but the timing is going to really depend on when you have planets that are kind of either on your moon or squares to your moon. I would say something that's going to work in your favor is Saturn's going to retrograde, trine your moon, and you're going to see Mars conjunct your moon. So I'll give you a couple ideas of like when. I like doing moves when Mars is around your moon because you can do it much more quickly. And it is in your 7th house, so I feel like you would have some help. And Mars is going to be very strong in Scorpio. So I'm liking October 12th, maybe through the 15th, because you're going to see the moon go through here with Mars and it's going to trine Saturn. Keep in mind, though, that Pluto's still going to square your moon next year. So you might move, but make sure that you like it. Now, another option is you can wait until the moon is sextiled by Mars, so an exalted Mars in Capricorn. So you can do something like around the first week of January, although you are still kind of in the Mercury shadow, so keep that in mind, but that's doable. Mars sextile the moon, Saturn trine. And then when you don't want to move is going to basically be let's say January 20th through February 20th. That end of January through mid-February, that's a no-fly zone. And you need to be prepared that you may move and there can still be pressure in regards to your living situation. Now your moon's in the 7th house, which means you could do like a roommate situation or share a space, or you could like live on a property where there's another home. Moon in Scorpio in the 7th house means you can live near people, but there could be some strife. And generally when the moon is in Scorpio, you will live somewhere that might be near like swamps or recycling centers or anything that is like regenerative, basically. Water, but in particular fresh water, not salt water. Then you're going to have Pluto move into 1 degree, so it's moving out of the square with your moon. And just know all next year you're going to feel Pluto kind of squaring your moon. So the times that I gave you seem to be the best, to be honest with you. And you're actually going to have a new moon around the 13th of November. And I kind of feel like that's definitely a time where it is setting the stage to make a move a lot easier for you before you get into the new year. But yeah, moon in Scorpio at 0 degrees, you know, recycling center, water treatment center. It might be close to places where there's like surgery centers or something like that. In the 7th house, just watch and make sure that like the people that you're either living with or near, or if you have a roommate situation, that they're not drama. Because having Pluto come into a square with your moon, especially if you're living near a friend or with a friend, can create some tension on the home front, right? And Saturn is still trining your moon. So I would say while Saturn's trining your moon this fall, that's the time definitely to move. And there's a lot of getting things organized right now because you're having also retrogrades in your 6th house. So it's like getting health in order, getting work and schedule stuff in order, making everything possible. And it is going to, you know, be in, I guess, like before you actually go through the Mars moon transit. But yeah, that's my advice. And you'll have the help with somebody too. When Mars is on your moon, likely somebody will help you with the move. And yeah, this is like the fruit of the South Node moon that just happened. So it looks like finally you gave way or you're more willing to move. And I think with your reverse nodal return, it's like you're feeling a little bit more like restless and you're like, okay, I want to go and do my own thing. I want to kind of venture out. So I wonder, are you going to consider moving somewhere different than where you've been living altogether, right? Just watch for when Pluto squares, Mars squares, or planets oppose. And you will have an eclipse the end of October that's going to oppose that. But this is about things getting more solid and more stable. So yeah, fall definitely looks good. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm glad you can make it. All right, so we've got Austin, Natalie, and SR. So let's pull up these charts. Okay, so Austin says June 6, 94, 7:47 p.m. in Louisiana. All right, so Austin says, hey Candace, hope you're surviving this Venus retrograde smoothly. The actors and writers are still on strike, and us on-set workers union contract will be up for review soon in the coming months. Travel across the country to be with family, painting for my uncle, and figuring out what the game plan is for the coming months if things continue as they are. Also doing long distance now that my girlfriend of 5 months. On top of that, what the stars have to say about my situation. Thanks for what you do. I listen to every episode you put out there. Appreciate the effort you dish out. Well, thank you. What's up, Austin? Well, you know, part of what's going on right now, and you're really going to feel this in the next month, there's definitely going to be some news. I just think outside of your transits, a new moon square Uranus, which is unions, a Mercury retrograde in Virgo, which is people who are helpers, like anticipate this might continue probably into like October. It could be longer, but safe to say maybe about 2-3 months. You're about to have Uranus come into conjunction with your South Node. So you might go, well, it's just what's going on in the world, but you know, South Node is what we release. Uranus is like that free fall, and it's like kind of being a jack of all trades and like trying or doing anything and like kind of being unconventional, right? I think with Uranus coming into conjunction with the South Node at 23, it's being like, okay, well, what am I good at? And trying to find oddball things that you can help with, 6th house. You're also going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to be taking place in your whole sign 10th house. So once again, about a month of kind of trying to figure things out. The opposition to Saturn and Neptune is the willingness to make changes with your home situation. The squares to the planets that you have in your 7th house is the willing to kind of pivot with the relationship stuff and, you know, being open to this potentially being a bit of a change. I think that you're in a state of flux with all of these aspects, and you're going to see a lot more stability with your resources, probably when Venus goes direct. Also, when you start seeing some positive aspects to your natal Saturn. Saturn rules money for you. And if you notice, you've got like Mercury that'll be opposite Saturn, Mars that's opposite Saturn. So you're like, I just got to go and do the work that I need to do to like make things work right now and be a bit in flux. You may be surprised, especially with, you know, Jupiter being the ruler of your chart, you know, come spring of next year, whether you go back and you end up working for, like, if it's a union, or if you end up working for this like same, you know, position, you may have better, but more so rights. You might make more money. There might be a better schedule. There might be more support, you know, better, whatever. Yeah, it's tough. It's really difficult. I've got a lot of friends in the industry, and I've been hearing just how difficult it's been, but ultimately it may provide more stability in the long run, or it may end up being a situation where you're pivoting and you're doing some other stuff, and then you kind of realize like, hey, I've started my own business, or I'm really good at, you know, renovations, or I'm really good at decorating, or like whatever. I can give you some ideas of some things that I believe will work. Because you're going to have Jupiter in conjunction to your Mars. Mars is the ruler of your 5th house, working for yourself, doing something creative. You also have Jupiter in close proximity to the moon, which means you have access to other people's money. And Uranus is obviously something futuristic or digital. I mean, as crazy as this sounds, like 6th house is pets. Pet sitting, pet walking, house sitting, painting homes, helping renovate homes, flipping homes. Design and personal assisting work, food preparation, things that involve fitness, health, and wellness. These are all things that kind of come under the range of 6th house Taurus. Because your South Node is in the 6th house, it means that you have a lot of experience with perfecting things, but specifically like animals. The ruler is Venus. Okay, and you have Venus in the 8th, so you have access to other people's money as long as you're willing to help them change and transform their habits, their routine, or something about their pets. So, I mean, I look at this and I'm like, what an amazing time to be like, I'm going to get on Rover and do some pet sitting or dog walking. Might not sound like the most glamorous thing, but with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and the sextile to Venus, you'll make a decent amount of money doing that. I also feel like Venus is in the house which deals with transformation, and it's in a sign that deals with home. So like if you're handy enough and if you're willing to put in the work or the effort, you could go and be buying used dressers and drawers and like furniture and stuff, and you could be like refinishing and repainting and like, you know, putting new knobs and other things on it and selling it, and you'd make money off of it. So if you've got somebody who's like, you know, ditching a dresser on the curb, you can go pick that thing up, put some paint on it, you know, clean it up, add some new hardware, and sell it for $200. And like, you'd make money doing that. If you wanted to do like a fix-it thing, you could do that as well. I love to hear that you've been working out. Definitely having a routine is good for you, and I think Uranus being there is good. And Uranus rules your 3rd house. So it might get you thinking about, okay, well, you know, do I want to learn about training? Do I want to learn about dietary stuff, or, you know, food prepping? Or do I want to, you know, help other people get in shape? You could. Mercury does rule your midheaven, and it's in your 7th. So you definitely like to help other people, to be, you know, handy and to, you know, assist. But I would say you want to get comfortable with this right now, because Uranus is going to be in conjunction to your South Node for a little bit. It's going to come back over your moon, so it's kind of making some changes at home, and then Uranus is going to hit your South Node again, and that's going to be in April, May of next year. And even then, it's still going to be around there. So it's like you pretty much have about a year-long transit where if you can have a side hustle that you can fall back on regularly, you may actually find that whatever you end up doing that's more independent might give you more freedom in the long run. And it's definitely something you can do like locally, right? Because Uranus rules your 3rd house of like what's local, something that you can do in the neighborhood. So I wonder, could you do some handiwork too? Is that something that you would consider doing, right? TaskRabbit might be good for that, especially if you're used to kind of doing like handy things. I would be posting that up and trying to see if you can pick up some odd jobs doing that, because that could also be a way to navigate this. And you'll see why this all happened, especially when you start having eclipses next year in your whole sign 10th house. inevitably there is some major job stuff coming, and really the only way out of this with Jupiter and Uranus in your 6th is doing something that's more independent. My husband's a late degree Scorpio rising and he's been having these transits the last couple of years as well. He worked a union job for a while, and I was like, why don't you help me? You're really good at all the things I can't do. And so now, like, we work together full time. And so he's doing Jupiter Uranus work in the 6th house, a bunch of unconventional astrology work, but also all the gadgets and the technical stuff, right? A little different for you, but I could definitely see you offering some of your services independently. Hopefully that's helpful. Get comfortable with having a side hustle, because you're going to want to develop something you can do for about a year plus, not just in between. Find something you can do consistently, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Yeah, and Uranus in opposition to Pluto, I mean, come on, like, you're not going to want to feel weighed down by other people. You're going to like the freedom of being like, I can do something myself. And with a chart like this, I don't know, it makes me kind of wonder. I wonder, like, do you start some kind of business and then you're doing it and then you hire other people? Jupiter going into your 6th house next year, you could hire other people to work for you, right? Good luck. Natalie, SR, Lauren on deck. So let's look at Natalie. You are very welcome. Okay, so Natalie says, my chart says Leo rising, but I resonate with the Capricorn reading. Okay, let's see. Oh, AM, hello. Let's fix this. There we go. Okay, so she says, my chart says Leo rising, but I resonate with Capricorn. Nothing has happened, but I've been focused on self-moves and healing, hoping to find an apartment and move by November 1st. What do you see? Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Okay, so basically, you know, the Venus retrograde in general, right? I know you got that Leo, 1st house sun and rising. Venus is touching on all your personal stuff. Okay, 1st house is self, direction, body, what your goals are, and then the sun is even more so that. When it retrograded, it started in conjunction to your sun, so you're focusing on what's best for you. Now, the retrograde is looking back at your 12th house, so it's about completing something. Cancer, which is about your home, so it's also about, like, working through issues revolving around where is home, looking for home, or maybe feeling lost. Now, your home base in general is your 4th house. So you've got the South Node going through there. You've got eclipses that are coming soon, which I do think are going to be amplifying and making it possible for you to move. And your 4th house, Placidus, is ruled by Venus. So part of Venus going retrograde means you're reevaluating, where am I willing to live? What am I looking at? What direction am I going in? So on and so forth. So the way that I see this kind of panning out is, first of all, the Sun Mercury Cazimi is building, and you're going to see that take place around the 12th tomorrow, and that's about some kind of epiphany or realization or figuring out what is most important to you, what you love. I would sit down and I would either create like a vision board or like make a list or start, drawing out your ideal space. I know that sounds weird, but it starts with you because your 4th house ruler is conjunct your sun. Sit down tomorrow and create the ideal place and put the price and the location and all the non-negotiables and the things that you want, and set that intention for what you're looking for. You may find another opportunity to do that is on the 16th during the new moon that you're going to have in Leo. And then when you have the moon go through your 4th house, that can be a time where you might be looking for something. So that's around the end of August. But I personally feel like a move is going to be prompted when Mars is coming into your 4th house. and you have a solar eclipse in your 3rd. So it looks like you should be moving between mid-October, so let's say the 14th of October, and what appears to be the 26th, which is just in time. You have a November 1st goal. So that period of time, solar eclipse in the 3rd house, amplifying a move, and you're going to have Venus conjunct your Mercury, helping you have the funds to be able to swing it. To me, it just looks like a lot of the Mercury retrograde for you is about reassessing your resources, your money, how much money you have, what you're willing to spend, kind of getting things in order. Probably feels a little agitating because all of these planets are in opposition to your moon. So I feel like there can be a lot of like looking at places and being like, okay, I'm having to pay for a deposit, or I'm having to pay to apply, and like, you know, I would say broaden your horizons a little bit. Eclipses in your 3rd house can definitely take you to a different part of town, or it could definitely get you acclimated with a new neighborhood. And it can be a good thing for you, right? And then your natal Venus also is in Libra. So, I mean, I wonder, are you going to start like actually going and physically looking at places when Mars comes into conjunction with Venus? Possibly as early as like maybe the beginning of September. Yeah, I could definitely see that for sure. Yeah, I think you'll start looking around then. But just know, we don't want to sign leases. We don't want to do any of that stuff. Like really wait until the Venus and the Mercury retrograde are over in mid-September. But I have a feeling you're going to actually be in the process of getting ready to move mid-October. So yeah, basically start looking mid-September. And then within about a month, it looks like you're going to find something for sure. Eclipses are there, a Mars-Venus connection, and then a solar eclipse. All of the markers are there that really seem to indicate that you're going to be moving, right? Been through a lot with the South Node going through your 4th house the last couple of years, so you're definitely ready to move. It's time for a change, for sure. Keep focusing on yourself. You know, the Venus retrograde in your 1st house is focusing on yourself. And I wonder when Venus comes into conjunction with your Sun the 2nd time around. So this will be 27 degrees, right around here, October 5th. You're like, yes, it was worth waiting for. I was really focusing and manifesting and investing, you know, in my vision. Venus retrograde in the 1st. Not willing to kind of make sacrifices or, you know, hold back what you truly feel like you need most. And you yourself, you would also benefit from really connecting with Venus, especially because she rules your 4th house. So how can you be initiating your relationship with Venus, giving little offerings on Fridays, doing something where you can connect with the goddess to help ease things up when it comes to looking for a home and having the financial support to make that happen? Especially the trine to Saturn. Oof, I like that. That's definitely going to help you big time. Good luck, Natalie. Sending you lots of good new apartment vibes. All right, so we have SR, Lauren, Tuan, and then Mary. Let's see, where do I have you? Is it under Sang? $97. I could have sworn I had you in here. No, maybe not. All right, let me put you in here. Oh, it's for your son. Okay, gotcha. Brandon. I think I read about him previously, no? You're welcome. Okay, so let's see what this is all about. Reading for Brandon. Okay. He was arrested on the 22nd of July, drug-related, and now is in prison. His court date and his bail hearing is next month on October 18th. His girlfriend is putting up bail. She's pregnant, hormonal, doesn't speak to me. What can you see with this chart? Does he get bail? Does he serve time? Good news, please. He's in there 3 months, just waiting for the date. He's also in another state. And I was spot on. Well, I'm sorry to hear that he's going through this. That's a tough one. Okay, so a couple things, right? First of all, he's in a pretty tight square right now with the North and the South Node square Pluto in the 12th house, which can be about jail or prison, isolation. Not everybody who's going through this square is having it, but definitely the ones that aren't going through some kind of incarceration are kind of feeling like the walls are closing in and they're very isolated. So that's not surprising. Pluto is also retrograding in conjunction with his natal Neptune. And Neptune in the 12th can be about isolation and limitation. So that's reinforcing that square. Now, the themes of other people's money, right? Venus is retrograding over his sun. So he's needing to get resources from a woman, partner, 7th house, to be able to get bail. So all of that like makes sense to me. I look at this and I also wonder, you know, something about the back and forth with the relationship. Let's see the date that you gave me for when he has his hearing, October 18th. So that's going to be right around, it's right around the eclipse. So there's going to be an eclipse. That's going to be right here in the 9th house, which is about law and legality. And that eclipse is ruled by Venus, and Venus is going to be in the 8th house. So, I mean, that does make me feel like at least he has the support if and when he were to get out. But definitely Venus is still in a difficult position. And Venus for him is in opposition to the South Node and the Moon. So it does make me feel like I'm wondering if there could potentially be a delay with sentencing, as much as I hate to say that. You're also going to see the eclipse square Pluto. So this is going to be about the decision of a judge, a jury, a lawyer, some kind of somebody who's a superior deciding whether or not he stays or he goes. Has there been any talk about the possibility of allowing him to get out as long as he's doing some kind of drug treatment program? Because he's going to have Mars go into his 12th house and he's going to have a Mercury retrograde. Equally, if he does get out, you want to make sure that you're having a conversation with him about realizing that, like, you know, he has to make sure that people aren't skipping out on, you know, paying his bail. He has to show up for any court. He needs to pay things back. Like, that's really important with the retrogrades in his 8th house. And by the time we get to, let's say, mid-December through January, you know, like, he needs to be careful. A Mercury retrograde in his 12th house, he could go back to jail, right? Sun conjunct Pluto, he could go back to jail. So we want to make sure that if he's getting out, he's got support. Maybe he's going through a program, you know, he's focusing on treatment. So that way he's not finding himself back in the same situation yet again. It's very, very important. I wonder if it's possible to have a conversation with his attorney, trying to see if it's possible that they can persuade the judge or persuade, you know, the other, I guess, what would it be, the district attorney? I don't know what it would be out there, to see if they would be willing to let him off if he went through a program. Because I think if he did, they would be willing to let him do that maybe in lieu of treatment or in lieu of serving more time. Freedom is more going to be about like Uranus or Jupiter. Okay, so even next year, Saturn's going to go over his South Node, so it looks like he's still in debt with something or he's having to pay something off. And he's also going to have Jupiter start coming into a square with his Uranus. Oh, here we go. No talks yet. I'm sure his lawyer would put up as part of his program, but yeah. So, I mean, I really think that that's like the answer, you know, because ideally it's a program that he has to be in until the new year, like point blank. Like he would have to, if he gets out, he would have to be point blank. Saturn is still going to come into conjunction with his south node. And that could mean that he could be in a situation where he's either stuck in a situation or he's indebted to someone or something until closer to, you know, the end of February of 2024. I mean, that is definitely possible. But when you start seeing these conjunctions and the sextile to Uranus, if he does have to do more time, I don't think it would be too much longer. I think you're looking at maybe February, March, and he could potentially get free. But with Pluto coming into conjunction with his ascendant, with, you know, some of these heavier transits, it's about figuring out a plan for his life. And so he's not going back to crime, right? Pluto in his first house. He's not feeling like he has to do some intense, obsessive, like fixated things, especially with Pluto square Mars. This is a lot of like getting control, getting grounded, going through a transformation, and getting serious about commitment when it comes to his life and his career. I would hope and imagine that knowing that he's going to be a dad also incentivizes him, you know, when he gets out to want to make some lifestyle changes, right? So much of the Venus retrograde on his sun is going to be about a bit of a back and a forth with another woman. So expect some fireworks maybe going on, because this retrograde's technically now in his 7th house of a back and forth with a relationship. So I'm wondering if somebody's not getting on well with him, or if somebody's being a little, you know, all over the place with the retrograde in his 7th house in opposition to his Aquarius placements, if it materializes as like a bunch of stress potentially going on with a partner. So I don't know if, you know, they're on good terms or not, but just, I would almost expect that, to be honest with you. And as an Aquarius rising, he's got Jupiter, Uranus in the 4th house, which is about sudden dramatic situations where things are changing at home and with the family. And the Venus retrograde in the 7th is squaring that, which means there's some kind of back and forth with a relationship. It's putting the pressure on the relationship he has with his mother or with a relative, and he feels caught in the middle. So that's going to go on until October, you know, so I'm sorry to hear that she's difficult to deal with and you guys aren't communicating, but it's very clear in his transits that's how things were going to go. And there can be a change in direction with what's, you know, potentially going on with his relationship. He might kind of feel like he's at her mercy, though, if she's the one that's helping him with, you know, being able to get the bail or the bond or whatever, you know, to get him out. She can be kind of jerking him around a little bit. And obviously Uranus rules, you know, his money. So Venus was originally starting the retrograde, or the shadow coming into opposition with Uranus. So there can be a lot of her dangling the carrot, I guess, in front of him, going back and forth about what she's doing for him and putting pressure on the relationship. Really make sure that you potentially talk to his attorney and see if there's a way to be able to negotiate less time if he's willing to go to a program, and encourage him to consider doing that, especially something that's at least going to go through the beginning of the year, right? But I do think it's possible. It's just that eclipse. That's the deal. The eclipse is going to be the defining moment, and at least this eclipse is going to trine his Jupiter, so it could give him a lucky break, and he may have an opportunity to speak before a judge and be able to convince them that he's willing to make a change. But it's in a square to his Neptune, which is basically saying, like, you know, he is realizing that the very, very much the potential that he may be potentially looking at a longer prison time. And they may actually like let him know that if he's a second-time offender, they may not be as lenient with him, which is all the more reason why you have to be on top of him December and January if he gets out, because that's the time that if he's going to screw up, something like that's going to happen. Okay. Difficult stuff. North Node's on his Saturn. It's time to be a big boy and learn how to really step up. A lot of, if he says he's going to do something, he has to stick to it, and I would keep encouraging him to do that. Encourage him to write letters. North Node on his Saturn in the 3rd is write letters, you know, start journaling, start focusing on his goals. Good luck. All right, so we have, let's see here, Lauren. So let me pull up Lauren. I know she's got a Synastry question. Okay, so Lauren is 1225, 94. 2:22 a.m. So you're Libra rising. Let me pull this up here. Libra rising, moon in Virgo, sun in Capricorn. Okay. And she says partner is 8:20:94. We don't know what time, but let's look. Okay, so here we go. Lauren says, resurface connection during pre-shadow Venus retrograde. And we have a deep connection. All right. If possible, also curious about career and money. All right, let's look at the relationship stuff. Let's see, is she here? You're welcome, SR. Good luck. Okay, so Lauren, first thing I want to tell you is obviously you're a Libra rising, okay? So being a Libra rising and having a Venus retrograde means that you are reviewing, reworking, and reconnecting with the past. Now, it's technically happening in your Placidus 10th house, so it could be changes with status, changes with relationship status, changes with your career. All of those things can be popping up. You're kind of in a bit of a predicament. You're in your Saturn's return, okay? So take it from an old lady like me. When you're in your Saturn return, like shit happens that kind of has to happen in order for you to feel like you're really growing up, okay? So obviously I'm only saying so much because some of your message you asked me to kind of keep private. Saturn represents boundaries, limitations, and restrictions, all right? You have Saturn in the 4th house at a 7, which means part of your Saturn's return is re-evaluating things in regards to your living situation and relationships, and you might be re-evaluating relationships from the past, 4th house. Now, Saturn is in opposition to Mars. Mars is relationship. So part of your Saturn return was going to be, okay, I'm in this situation where I'm having to make a decision about a relationship. Somebody comes back into my life and it's like, do I take the bait? Do I not? It's part of it. The other part of it is that you have Venus in Scorpio and Uranus has been in opposition. So likely you've seen a lot of static just in relationship stuff in general prior to this person coming around. A lot of off and on inconsistencies. And you've already been feeling the tension revolving around you and, dating or your love life. So it's creating a lot of, creating a lot of friction. Oppositions are relational. So where there's been a lot of hot and cold, off and on, not being sure about relationships, now we have Saturn coming into an opposition being like, what do I want? Do I want to commit to somebody? Do I not? And how can I do it in a way that's more public? 10th house. So the truth is with Saturn in opposition to your Mars right now, I kind of feel inclined to tell you, think about what you want. What do you want in relationships? Don't just go from one situation to another. Okay, don't do the Libra thing. Libra risings do that. Focus more on being like, okay, instead of being afraid about making a relationship change, sometimes it's not A or B, sometimes it's C. And you may find that what's coming up now is more an opportunity to be like, oh, is this showing me what I really want? Do I really want to be in a relationship or would I rather be single? Is this person giving me the opportunity to be able to figure that out? Maybe. But as long as Uranus is in opposition to your Venus, and as long as Saturn's in opposition to your Mars, until Saturn comes out of an opposition with your Mars, I don't think you've really figured it out until the new year. And I think that there can be some home or living situations that can be kind of complex with being able to have to overcome some of those things first. So if you're living in a situation where you live with another person, if you're limited by a lease or a work situation, you can't cut and run and go to this other person yet anyway. Sometimes during a Venus retrograde, we reevaluate things, and if something's dead, we're like, it's dead. And also, like, karmic relationships and soulmates can come in. So it can be a time where if you know that you're not happy in a pre-existing situation, then it's time to kind of cut and run, maybe. So that's that. And your Saturn return is going to kind of be in full swing until next year. I mean, literally March, April, until, you know, Saturn moves away from your natal Saturn. Now, Jupiter, you know, sitting in conjunction to the South Node, people from the past come back. You know, Jupiter and Uranus are going to meet in your 7th house, so that's bringing people in. And you've got Pluto at the most southern part of your chart squaring the ascendant and the descendant. My dear, you need to figure out your home shit first. Figure out your home and your living situation first. That's my advice. And really look at your past, 4th house. Saturn in opposition to Mars, right? And you've got Neptune, Uranus in the conjunction to your 4th house. Let me ask you a question. Did your parents separate? Did you move around a lot as a kid? You know, Saturn in opposition to Mars, did you see one parent leave the other, or was there not a lot of stability, or did something get tough and then did somebody leave? Because that can be happening. Yeah. So history repeats itself with Saturn in the 4th. You'll see a lot of similar things that happen either growing up or with your parents' relationships, or there was a lot of inconsistency. And so to some extent, I could see you being like, oh, I don't want to move around a lot, or I don't want to have a lot of change. And you're trying to avoid that. And you want to make sure you're not staying in situations just because you're trying to avoid that. Just food for thought. You got so many planets in your 3rd house, you're going to move around a lot in your lifetime, you know? Sun, Mercury, Neptune, Uranus, you're going to move a lot, you're going to learn a lot, you're going to change cars a lot, you're going to live in different areas. It's just, it is what it is. That's part of your astrology, okay? All right, so looking at the other person, August 20th, 1994, they have Juno on your ascendant, so they could be a good partnership match. Jupiter conjunct your North Node, good partnership match. North Node conjunct your Venus. Sun conjunct your Mars, and they're born on a full moon because they got moon in Aquarius. We don't know the time, so we're not going to assume, but let's just say from the perspective of a Leo sun. Venus going retrograde through the sun is about a lot of reevaluating what they want. And I would imagine the last 2 or 3 years, there's been some challenges in a relationship, you know, that they maybe have been in, and they're trying to figure out whether or not it's working or not. And I look at the square to Pluto. So Venus is going through their 1st house, squaring their North Node in Pluto. So equally, there should be a mirrored situation between the two of you, right? You guys should both kind of be like, well, I'm at a crossroads, I'm at a turning point, I want to make changes, but also I need to make home changes, right? Being that Mars is your 7th house ruler and they have Mars in opposition to your sun, that's a very strong attraction. And it's been my experience when people have transit Saturn go through your 5th house, sometimes it can bring romantic connections back from the past. And, you know, maybe you needed more time before you could reconnect. Maybe. I don't know. You know, both of you guys are in your Saturn return. So it's kind of like if you're going to get it together, you need to get it together ideally in the next year. And I would probably, with Saturn being there, you know, it depends. If you have natal Saturn conjunct that, maybe you can handle it better. A lot of people say in Synastry, Saturn overlays in the 5th house is not ideal. It can actually indicate a lack of relationship or a lack of intimacy or emotional fulfillment. I think the sextile to your sun and a lot of the other aspects you have going really works. But it's the Venus in the 12th house for me. That you're going to see eclipses there. You're going to see the South Node there. And I feel like for you to take this seriously, there needs to be an all or nothing conversation with him. And if that is going to happen, it's going to require you to make some pretty significant home and emotional changes come the turn of the year. So you really could facilitate really genuinely, wholeheartedly being in a committed relationship come, you know, March, April, May 2024. So I would have those conversations first. But one way or another, with Pluto square your ascendant and your descendant, there is a definitive change going on the home family front. Like that is coming. You can't stop that train. And I think you guys have some really good synastry. But sometimes, you know, we bring people in. I'm not a huge fan of like saying, oh, soulmates and twin flames and stuff, but especially Libra risings, they bring people in that are going through the same stuff that they're going through. Even if that other person doesn't have any particular placements in Libra, you know, you can bring somebody in who's like, oh, I equally just got out of a shitty relationship, or I'm equally confused, or I don't know what I'm looking for. And so be careful with that. because you want to make sure that you have somebody who really knows what they want. And I think that this person's in a state of really reevaluating what they want, and they may be a little selfish right now. But when they have a really strong, Uranus transit, like next year when Jupiter and Uranus are in conjunction, they're definitely going to have a huge status change. New work, new relationship stuff out in the open, which is also going to impact what changes are taking place on the home front. And a lot of Libra risings, even though you're a very late degree, so you're more like Scorpio, a lot of these transits are kind of going, okay, well, I'm thinking about what I really want in regards to love and relationship. And a lot of Libra risings who are single, they don't want to compromise. They're like, no, I know what I want. I'm either going to be single or it's going to be somebody who's going to fight for me, Aries. And a lot of Libra risings also that are in relationships, the seventh house eclipses are not for the faint of heart. It can definitely bring a lot of conflicts with existing relationships and partners. So for those of you guys who are in relationships, there can be a lot of going toe-to-toe with other people. Why? Because seventh house is relationships, Aries is self. So a lot of Libra risings are kind of realizing like, oh, I'm not getting what I need in this dynamic. So I'm, stirring the pot and I'm creating some friction because maybe, you want out. Maybe it's because you're trying to see if somebody's going to fight for you, right? But when you start to see those solar eclipses taking place in the spring next year, you're like supposed to be like very much in something. Figure out the living situation stuff first, boo-boo, okay? Good luck. I hope that's helpful. I have Tuan and Janet, Carla, Joanne. Did I get Tuan's info? I think I did. Yeah. That was a general reading, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Hey Candace, I had questions about possible job opportunities in the near future. We tried to trade copper in the past. It didn't work out. I'd love to do something different. Okay. All right. Let's look. You're welcome. Okay, my dude. I've got you here, Aquarius rising, Pisces moon, and your sun is in Aries. So business stuff brewing. Well, you're kind of in a really powerful time financially. Having the North Node coming in conjunction with your sun, so business partnerships perhaps, significant partnerships setting up as well. You're going to see that clear into like the new year. You've got Mercury that's going to go retrograde on your South Node and a new moon that's about to be on your South Node. So that's going to be around mid-September. Do you feel like you're going back and forth a lot with either investments or a collaboration that you're doing with a business partner or with clients? Because that's the whole theme for the next month ahead, just a heads up. Mercury retrograde in your 7th, that can be rearranging how you're partnering with people, how you communicate with people and connect, what you have to offer. And a lot of Saturn on your ascendant is about driving a hard bargain and like not backing down. So whether it's going to be with negotiations, with things that you're selling, it's about really standing firm with what your non-negotiables are and what your needs are. That's like the big takeaway. With the North Node coming in conjunction with your sun, it's a lot of like, well, what's in it for me? What do I possess? What do I have physically? What do I own? Right? And then in terms of like career stuff, that's going to be more Jupiter. And you do have Jupiter that is in your 3rd, sextiling the North Node. Contracts, negotiations, things that are written out, agreed to, like definitive. These are things that I would be focusing on more. You're going to see some pretty significant work energies changing later in the year. When you see Mars go into Scorpio, so this is going to be the end of October. And then you'll see a Mercury retrograde that's going to be taking place in mid-December. So end of October through January is like prime time. To me, it looks like there's a lot of getting stuff in order and negotiating things and trying to work things out with business partners now, right? So that way when you get to that point, you can start making those moves. But I would be asking myself a lot, as an Aries sun and Mercury in the 2nd house, what do I have? What do I possess? What am I gaining out of this? And it sounds selfish, but You kind of have to be right now because you're coming into what your chart really wants you to have, which is control over something, to possess something. But yeah, a lot of it's negotiating with people between now and the fall. But you're not going to really see stuff start picking up until end of October. That's when you're going to start to see things really start to turn. Let's see, what else did you ask me? Possible job opportunities in your future, business partnerships. Yeah, I mean, the business partnerships thing that I would say that can be kind of dicey also is the Venus retrograde. So you've got Venus going retrograde over your descendant. Have you felt like there are people who are going back and forth with you? Especially, I mean, really since Venus came into a square with Uranus. So since early July, what was going on there? Early July, the first week. Relationships too, 7th house. The truth is any relationship stuff that's setting up though, it's going to be with people who are going to be also shifting gears. I wonder what was happening at the beginning of July through like mid-July, because this energy was very passionate and it was very romantic, but it was squaring Jupiter and Uranus. So it's like people that are elsewhere, trying to get you out of your comfort zone, trying to get you to move, relocate, travel, like people who are trying to, you know, bring you on an adventure. Now you're about to have Mercury go retrograde in your 7th over your South Node. I would say, I'm wondering if you're going to hear from somebody from the past. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting looking at some of these retrogrades. Especially, man, from the time Mars hits that. So Mars is going to hit your South Node around the 14th. I would say the 14th through the 18th of August looks like a lot of action with other people. And Venus is going to come back, so it can be a partner, it can be a woman. It's going to come back into your 7th house closer to the end of September. So there's a lot of delays, not being able to kind of come together, you know, trying to figure out the best time to meet someone, how you're going to connect with them. And by the end of September, it kind of evens out. And I like that then Venus is going to trine the North Node, right? And when Venus and Juno come into connection in your 7th house as well. 9 to 5, trying to broker trade deals. We've been doing this too. Client wasn't able to meet our terms, and now we have another opportunity to come September. Okay, so you will see this across the board, whether it's people you're dating or clients that you're brokering deals with. Nothing is really going to start to stick until about then. Unfortunately, it will literally be the end of September, because that's when Venus is direct and Venus is coming into your 7th house. And then you're like, okay, now I can meet with people. Now we're making things happen. And you're going to have a number of planets that are going to go into your 8th house, which is about other people's resources and money owed. And you might find that you have some cash in hand the first half of October, right? Especially right around that eclipse, mid-October. Really, also, a lot of this is like Saturn kind of in a square to your Venus. So there's a lot of like feeling like you're at odds between, okay, what's going on with me and other people. So there can definitely be a lot of like having to tell either people on the home front or potential partners, like, nope, not working for me, not working for me. You know, Saturn square Venus, we feel the pinch financially and also with relationships. And with Saturn in opposition to these planets, there's a lot of other people that are kind of indecisive. So just be cool, right? Part of Saturn retrograde is about you reevaluating, taking a breath and being like, okay, I'm not going to budge. I'm focusing on my vision. Meditation is going to be really helpful for you throughout this next month, and really visualizing what it is that you want, and be talking in a way that you already have it. North Node in your 2nd house. You know, I have the money, I have the client, I have the successful, you know, job offer in hand, whatever. Like, you want to be talking about it right now. Go and listen to some Ram Dass. Be here now. That'll be really helpful for you in really working with that North Node in Aries. I hope that's helpful for you. Keep me updated. Hey Stephanie, I'm sorry to hear that. That is a bummer. That's difficult with the Pluto square. Definitely a lot of late degree Libra risings are having to say farewell to some of their loved ones. It's difficult. All right, so we've got Janet, Carla, Joanne, and Steven. Thank you guys for your patience, by the way. I know it's taken a little bit of time tonight. I appreciate you guys. Give me a thumbs up if you have not already and like the stream. It's really helpful. Okay, so I've got Janet here. All right, 4/4/1980. True Venus retrograde, an old flame is back in my orbit by my doing. I want either to finally cut the cords with them or figure out if a relationship is possible. If he shares my feelings, we would have some pretty significant obstacles to overcome. Being together, any insight is appreciated. Oh boy. Well, this is difficult. Is everybody who's like either a Taurus or a Libra rising, like, are you okay right now? How are you feeling? Are you okay? This has definitely been very difficult. Okay, so you are Taurus rising, right? Ruled by Venus. So when Venus goes retrograde, it definitely has quite an impact on you. Venus is retrograding in your 4th house, which means you are reevaluating a home or a living situation and maybe reevaluating the past. Now, Janet, you've got a square here. So you've got Mars and Jupiter square Uranus and Moon, square the nodes, square your ascendant. So when planets cross the late degrees of the fixed signs, like shift happens, right? And to put it very simply, oh, hold on. Do I have the right time? This is gonna drive me crazy. Hold on. I have 1943. Is that not the right time? Okay, I can see it now. Thank you. It says 19, just so you know. So I was like, I thought it was military time. No worries, no worries, no worries. There we go. There we go. Oh, I guess you're right. Hello, PM. PM, PM. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Before I got way too deep into that one. All right. So, Scorpio rising, Sun in Aries, and Moon in Sag. Yeah? So make sure that's right. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so I feel a little bit relieved that you don't have those exact angles, but still kind of difficult. All right, so where do I begin? Mars rules your chart. You're kind of dealing with a bit of like a back and forth situation, an obstacle in a relationship. Let me make this process. I think part of what's going on is you're dealing with your Jupiter-Uranus transits in your 7th house, right here. So radical changes and transformations in relationships, people coming, people going. Obviously, Venus retrograde in your 10th house. So reevaluating your status. Venus is going retrograde over your Mars. So your Mars, this is Venus. So what's the deal? Somebody comes back to you, okay, Venus over your Mars, but it's square Jupiter and Uranus. So to put this very simply, something about connecting in a relationship is definitely putting an existing status in jeopardy. Let's just leave it at that. So whether this is one of you guys being entangled in an existing relationship or what, I don't know. But as Venus goes over your Mars, yes, it's bringing you and another person together, but it's squaring Uranus and it's opposing your South Node. Now, I'm not one to be like, oh, it's okay, because I'm not judge and jury. I just talk to you guys about what you go through. It's not my place to say what's right or wrong. But it is on your North Node. So, you know, the Venus retrograde on the North Node ruled by the Sun. If you are in a position where you're meant to be changing your job, meant to be separating or divorcing, meant to be realizing that a certain existing relationship is not in balance, right? 6th house, then this Venus retrograde over your Mars can be showing you or incentivizing you, like, are you willing to make change? Still, you're born with Mars square Uranus and Uranus square the nodes, and you're coming into your Uranus opposition pretty soon. Next year, you're going to be having your Uranus opposition, which could quite literally materialize as being like, well, I've always been a bit of the wild child, right? Uranus square Mars is, you're the wild child. Maybe you have issues with authority. Maybe you don't like being told what to do. Maybe you like having freedom. But next year when Uranus opposes your natal Uranus and you're in your Uranus opposition, it's like where you're used to being kind of wild, now there's some wildness that's coming through relationships. So could it be suddenly ending a relationship? Yeah, but it could be suddenly getting into another one. So until Uranus is out of this opposition and out of a square with Mars and out of a square with the nodes, I kind of feel like now until 2026, there's going to be a lot of change in your relationships. And then, by the way, Jupiter's going to hit your Venus next year, so it can talk about some kind of secretive, passionate thing going on. And then, 2 more years down the road, Uranus is going to hit your Venus, ruler of the 7th house. And you have your Venus in a double-bodied sign. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but it's kind of like, if you're feeling restless, other people are going to come in to free you from that restlessness. But if you do decide to participate in some of these new relationships, it's going to affect your pre-existing status out in the world or your job. It's going to challenge you as a person, and it's going to definitely bring up the need to make a huge shift in regards to your home base. So taking the bait here is definitely going to come with a lot of hurdles and a lot of obstacles. There's no real way of candy coating that. And then eventually down the road, when Uranus comes into conjunction with Venus, that's going to happen come 2025 anyway, because that's the real breaking free of a relationship, if that's what potentially has to happen, right? So it's kind of like, do you rip the Band-Aid off? I would say this square would be enough to be like, oh, a relationship's going to change. But the opposition and the conjunction to Venus really seals the deal. And it may take a process until about summer of 2025 to really, get into the flow of being like, oh, now I'm free, if that's the decision that you really want to make, right? Not easy. I would never recommend anybody make a definitive decision during a Venus retrograde. I think it's all about reevaluating what works and what doesn't work. And I've been yelling and screaming from the rooftops, trying to tell everybody that when this Venus retrograde ends, Venus will go into Virgo, where she's not happy, and it will oppose Saturn. So mark your calendars, the 9th through the 11th of October, what everybody has been wrestling with in relationships, what everybody's been wrestling with financially, like what have you, like they're going to have to make a definitive, difficult decision. Venus in opposition to Saturn, right? And Venus rules the south node. Oh, conjunct Mars. So a lot of people are going to get to the beginning of October and go, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm cutting this off. Or I'm making the difficult decision. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. So everybody really needs to give this until about mid-October. Oh, when there's a solar eclipse in Libra, which is going to be right on your Pluto, to really make that definitive decision. But make sure that you guys are both on the same page. Hopefully that's helpful. That's a difficult situation, but definitely going to be lively nevertheless. Definitely worth going and learning about Uranus opposed Uranus, especially in your 7th house. Okay, Carla. We have Carla. Yeah, there's hope you can make change. Just know that the back end of the retrograde, Venus is going to square Uranus again. So there's a lot of inconsistencies and back and forth all summer long. So it's a process, right? It's a process. You want to look at what's been happening since really June. June and July is where we started to see the rumbles in the pre-shadow. Okay, Carla, Venus Cazimi reading. What do you see in terms of love? I'm dating a Gemini man. Things have been good. No complaints. Just wondering what's up ahead and if there's anything I should know. Okay. Well, Carla, I mean, you know, in your chart, you do have Saturn retrograding over your descendant. So Saturn rules 5th house, dating, true love. So perhaps maybe you're reevaluating this connection and going like, okay, you know, is this going to be something that's going to stick for a while? Saturn's about long term. Saturn's also slightly in a sextile to all of your Capricorn, which is positive. And as it's retrograding, it's going to come into a square with Pluto. So I wonder if there's going to be talks, especially at the end of this year, about forwarding the relationship and the potential of maybe making changes on the home front. And if you guys would potentially be open to the idea of talking more seriously about making a change in the living situation and living together. I could definitely see with Saturn coming into your 7th house and a Mercury retrograde here at the end of the year that comes up for discussion. Venus is currently retrograde in your 12th, so there's a lot of resting, retreating, but it can also be a romantic, kind of sexy time with that in the 12th house, feeling a little daydreamy, in my opinion. Your 7th house is ruled by both Neptune as well as Jupiter, okay? So Jupiter's on your sun, so there's a lot of feeling, once again, idealistic, kind of daydreamy, feeling romantic. Good time to be like planning trips maybe together. I mean, you don't really know somebody until you travel with them, right? And you got a lot of planets in your 9th house, so I would assume you like travel or culture, different places. And with Jupiter conjunct your sun, sextile Saturn, I think it's a good time to be like, hey, let's go somewhere, let's do something, let's talk about the future, right? And the potential maybe for like really growing a relationship. You know, the 9th house can be about the bigger picture. So it can be talking about what are you looking for? What are you hoping to achieve? And like getting all that out in the open. So as you're starting to see Saturn come into conjunction with planets in the spring next year, you might really see some forward motion in regards to a relationship and a more serious commitment. One thing you will experience is pretty soon you have a Mercury retrograde in your 1st house. Obviously, being a Virgo rising, you know, Mercury retrogrades affect you a little bit more. So there can be a sense of like reworking how you're communicating or how you're thinking, and you have a number of planets that are going to oppose Neptune. So this naturally, when planets come into your 1st house, you're more focused on yourself, what you need, what direction you're going in, how your body feels, all that fun stuff. So my advice with all of these oppositions is like slow down, take your time, reevaluate. Don't feel like you need to rush. And there can be a sense of being so self-focused that, you know, partners can kind of be like, hi, I'm over here, you know, Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house. Take care of your health. Saturn retrograde into your 6th and a Mercury retrograde in the 1st. And you've got a full moon coming in your 7th house here pretty soon. So that's going to be conjunct Saturn on the 30th. Big completions, conclusions, decisions about relationships. Obviously, conjunct Saturn is serious, but ruled by Jupiter, which is on your sun. Once again, full moon on your ascendant and your descendant. So could it be a defining moment? Does somebody say, I love you, or let's talk more seriously about the future? Let's plan a trip together. These can be good things. This isn't necessarily bad. It's got some pretty nice aspects in your chart. Watch for when planets come into opposition with Saturn. So the sun opposed Saturn, maybe you're kind of feeling like you're still feeling things out a little bit. And down the road when Venus opposes Saturn as well, there's a lot of like what I need versus what someone can give you, which is going to be the mid-October time. But Jupiter's still on your sun during that time. So I don't really feel like a relationship's going to end. I think that there can be a sense of just reassessing whether or not, you know, you guys are on the same page. And talking about that a lot more, especially once you're getting into the end of this particular year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. What great transits. Jupiter and Uranus kind of by your sun. So you're feeling particularly either travel happy or really optimistic about what the future holds. Look to that Mercury retrograde mid-December in your 5th house to be reevaluating a commitment in your love life, especially with the sextiles to your 7th. Good luck. All right, so I have, let's see, who do I have here? Cassie. Here we go. All right, so Cassie, August 2nd, 59, 4:37 a.m. Trying to find out what's going on with the big three, money, love, and home. I've been getting a lot of messages about money coming, then I get a lot of weight messages, annoyingly confusing. Thought I'd have you look at the chart, and I'm ready to move, fall in love, whatever, many thanks. Okay, gotcha. All right. Just looking for a miracle somewhere. Okay, so you're Cancer rising, and your sun is in Leo, and your moon is in Cancer. So you're getting ready to have your lunar return here pretty soon. Okay, so honestly, I mean, being somebody who A, has a lot of Leo in your chart, and B, is a cardinal rising, yeah, your life is quite active right now. I could see the hurry up and wait. We have a lot of planets retrograde, so I think a lot of people have made that statement to me, being like, I know something's coming, but like when and how and like where is this going? In my mind, you know, the Venus retrograde is the slowing down effect, coming into conjunction with Uranus, right? Which is going to be about, you know, money, borrowing and lending or saving. It's your 8th house ruler. Mercury. And so you're somebody who's really intuitive. Having Mercury conjunct Uranus and Mercury retrograde means you're very in tune with the cosmos. But part of what's going on is like Venus's retrograde is having you reevaluate and rethink, what do I really want? What do I need to possess? What do I let go of? And a lot of it does have to do with other people or like other forces beyond you. And it's all coming into a square with transit Uranus and Jupiter. So feeling kind of frustrating. And it's really trying to get you to go back to the drawing board when it comes to your friends, your networks, and your goals, right? The squares to your 11th house. Who or what group can incentivize you, encourage you? You know, what friends are you going to surround yourself with who are also going to be kind of movers and shakers? And also, Venus retrograde in your sign. What do you love? What do you want? What do you value, right? Personally. And there's a lot of taking stock in what you have and what you no longer need, in my mind. I do feel like the order of operation for a Cancer rising right now is clearing out, you know, outdated relationships or things that are not empowering you, square to Pluto. So you can go deeper into the North Node in your 10th, which is great for your career, by the way. Maybe you haven't been feeling it because Saturn's been in a slight opposition, but you're definitely going to start feeling that energy drum up, especially like now. You're going to feel this a lot also when we get into Sag season. So, you know, November going into December. And the spring of next year is going to boast solar eclipses and things that are going to be about big decisions with work and career. So for a Cancer rising chart, it's pretty active because there's a lot of clearing out the past, clearing out the home, willing to move, focusing more on career and listening to your intuition and letting that guide you, right? Okay, then if you don't work, the North Node in the 10th house is going to be, well, what do I have control over? You know, what can I do on my own? What am I taking charge and making happen? Relationships is more Saturn, right? And you're going to have Saturn that's going to be, you know, in opposition to your Pluto and to your Mars until the next year. Even Saturn in opposition to Venus, I feel like for a lot of Cancer risings, connecting with people at a distance is also a good option, or meeting somebody in another place or somebody that, you know, travels a little bit that can come back and forth to you. And yeah, all these planets where you're getting the Venus retrograde right now, there's a lot of reevaluating. What do I want? What can I afford? You know, what do I want to have aesthetically in my home? What's going to feel the most comfortable? I would start there. And that way, when the solar eclipses come in, if you are thinking about making a change in your home base or like moving, that could definitely be something that you're looking at starting to work on in mid-October. And then relationship stuff, when you have a more positive aspect to Saturn, like for example, when Mars gets into Capricorn, I know a lot of Cancer risings are going to be in a very powerful time in relationships, meeting some significant people. So that's kind of kicking in for you closer to the beginning of January. Obviously, you could do something sooner, right? You don't have to wait that long. You have a new moon in your 5th house of romance in mid-November, but mid-November through January, there's a lot more kind of going on here. And I'm more focused on this Venus retrograde in your 2nd house, which is about How do I feel about myself? What can I afford? What do I want to buy? What do I need? What can I let go of? Because in a way, all those planets that are kind of hitting your second house has like a very Taurus vibe to it. So it can be a lot revolving around self-esteem and security, right? I love that it's all trining your North Node too. It's meant to be empowering. So it's a lot of, you know, what's important to me. And if I'm not working, what is my status? What is my title out in the world, right? It's about finding your purpose, which is kind of interesting because you're getting ready to come into your reverse nodal return. So where most of your focus with the North Node in the fourth has been home, emotions, private life, you know, past, family, real estate, you're having like a flip effect with that right now, where at least with the reverse nodal return, you can do the past and the present, and past and the future and the present. So there's a little bit of balancing both, where I feel like you can still have the safety and security of home. Maybe it's just looking for a new home and a new relationship, Libra. But more importantly, it's about a new status out in the world. So I would try to be focusing on, you know, working on that and trying to figure out what is your contribution, you know, to society, 10th house. Watch for that solar eclipse in your fourth, because that's going to be a bit of a doozy. That'll be here, because that's going to light your chart up a little bit. Solar eclipse on top of your Juno, so setting intentions for partnerships mid-October. Square your ascendant, your descendant, and oppose the North Node. So this is when you're really getting things in action in regards to your home, family, and emotions. So if you're wanting to move, it's a great time to set that intention. Good luck. Got Steven. Let's pull up Steven. And then Lisa and Samantha and Michelle. You're welcome. Okay, Steven, I've got you here July 20th, 1999, 11:41 a.m. in Atlanta. So you're 29-degree Virgo rising, sun in Cancer, and moon in Scorpio. It's been an uneventful Jupiter return birthday. How can this Cazimi help me out? All right. Well, happy belated. I would be cautious. I would be very careful with your words, my dear. Uneventful is not a term that you want to use with the universe in the next month, because it's going to be real eventful with your transits. And I'm not just saying that. Pluto's going retrograde. It's coming back for its third and final opposition to your sun. Square the nodes. At 27 degrees. Pluto in your chart represents the third house of communication, movement, vehicles, aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, and the mind. So as it retrogrades in the fourth, you might be reconnecting to some of these people, reevaluating your living situation, making changes in the way that you look at home and family. And Pluto will oppose your sun, which makes me feel like there can be some things going on emotionally or on the home front that are challenging your ability to feel completely solid at work. On top of that, Pluto's going to square the nodes. Just as an example, in about 2 days, when the moon hits 29 degrees, it'll oppose Pluto and square the nodes. Watch what's happening on the 13th. Something's going down there, okay? Until you get out of this square, that's a pretty tight pinch. And I would be observing when the moon goes into Libra, because you should see something also that feels a little intense around the 21st of August. And again, around the 27th of August. And again, around the 2nd of September. And then that's going to ease up. And what this wants to have happen is some change or transformation at home or privately, okay? All right, so back to the Cazimi. So the Sun-Venus Cazimi conjunction. You're going to hear for Virgo rising, it's in your 12th house. It's not. For you, it's taking place in your 11th house. So it can be about another person, a friend, a female, a woman reaching out to you and saying, hey, let's connect, let's be friends, let's socialize, let's go to this party, let's collaborate. Venus also coming into conjunction with the sun is an inferior conjunction. So it's got a new moon effect. It's about something dying off and something being reborn. And it's happening with a square to Uranus. So could it be that somebody invites you to something, to join a group or collaborate, that could be a money-making opportunity? Yes, it could. Could it be a situationship and an opportunity to have a fling with somebody that you're friends with? Yes, it could. So take that into consideration, especially with Saturn in opposition to your Venus. So there could potentially be some challenges in like committing right now. And you're going to have Mars cross your ascendant, and that's going to kind of throw you into action when it comes to going after what you want. I like this for like invitations, parties, meeting new people, you know, social gatherings, things like that. And I'm looking for like trines or other aspects that this is going to be making in your chart. And really the only thing I can see is the trine to Chiron. So it can be like healing a wound, revolving around where you didn't feel like you had partnership, or you didn't feel like you had support, or maybe you didn't feel worthy of relationship, and somebody comes in and says, no, you know, like let's hang out, or let's be friends again, or let's reconnect, or I miss you, right? Venus rules the South Node, so it's something from the past, or maybe somebody is coming back because they feel like they owe you something, or they want to give something back to you or reconnect. So there's that. But it's not making too many aspects. Now, on the other hand, as Venus continues her retrograde, you know, she's going to square off with Jupiter conjunct your Saturn, and also she's squaring off with Uranus. You're almost a Libra rising. I'm a 0-degree Libra rising, so I'm going through very similar transits. And for me, it's been a lot of like, who am I aligning myself with? Who am I collaborating with that's going to bring more support, right? 8th house can be psychological support. It could be financial support. It could be also people who are helping you work through some challenging situations. So who's going to be like a team player? And the people who you're potentially connecting with and collaborating with, it has to be a fair exchange. It has to be a fair give-take. So you might find that friendships come back, but people come back and you're like, well, what do they bring to the table? You know, this person only calls me when they need something, or when they're having a problem, or, you know, what have you. So you might find that you're also working your way out of fair weather friendships. Not a terrible place to have that. And the 11th house is self-promotion. So as Venus and the sun come into conjunction, you may have people who give you the opportunity, or they give you the space to be able to promote yourself, or they may have a platform or something that can like really help you connect with other people. So you're receiving more love. The 11th house is about receiving love, right? So yeah, I mean, uneventful birthday maybe, but with Pluto in opposition to your sun still, square the nodes, oof. I hope all is well at home and in your living situation and with your family. And if it's not, then it may be prompting you to connect with certain relatives, or consider moving, or, you know, make some changes when it comes to your goals out in the world, right? It's been a long road, 2 or 3 years of having Saturn and Pluto kind of in opposition to your sun, and you're still standing. So I think you're going to be fine. But Pluto will not leave that opposition until about December. And then that opposition is finally going to clear up. I'm used to doing things myself, that outside help foreign to me, plus looking for a new job, so I hope it's cool. So here's what I would recommend. Tell people in your social circle, hey, I'm looking for something. You know, this is what I'm looking to do. This is what I'm good at. This is my background. If you know anything, let me know. Because somebody could quite literally be like, I think I have something for you. My family life is terrible. Well, as much as I hate to say that, the Pluto square right now is bringing that up. It's bringing up if there's issues with the parent. Right? And even if you're not connecting with them or talking to them, some situation or some meltdown may potentially be happening currently, especially with solar figures. It's hard to say. The sun could be father figures, it can be brothers, but Cancer could also be the mother. So with one of your parents, something could be going down. You may hear something about it. And if you're going through struggles in regards to your relationship with your family, and you're feeling like you're having a difficult time, Part of the Venus quincunx or in conjunct Pluto is about people being there to support you as you go through that difficult time and some of those transitions. Part of that's about learning to ask for help. It's about letting people in, right? The North Node's about to go into your 7th house. So this is about socializing, connecting with people, partnerships, working with counselors, therapists, you know, an astrologer, like letting people help you, right? So even though you're Virgo rising, consider listening to maybe Libra, because that can be helpful with these transits. And if you're having problems with both of your parents, that could make sense too. Some astrologers consider the 4th house to be the father and the 10th house to be the mother. But remember that Libra is inverted. I say Libra, you're a Virgo, but this is inverted. You have Cancer in the 10th and you have Capricorn in the 4th. And your sun's intercepted. So that can be some unexpected things coming involving male figures, right? That can be challenging you in your ego. Pluto in opposition to your sun. It's like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to talk to him. It's, you know, it's beyond fixing. And then you're like, oh my God, you're still feeling the effects of it, you know, emotionally. Surround yourself by the people who are going to kind of build you up. And it's okay to ask for help or to let other people like love you right now. You know, there can be a lot of support that can come from groups if you're not feeling the love. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I've got Lisa, and I'm not sure, did I plug your info in? I saw you send it a couple times, Lisa, so I apologize. I don't think I got that, but I think that you sent it after the fact. Let me pull this up for you. June 26, 65. And that was at 11:15 p.m. There we go. I got you, Lisa. I know you've been waiting for a little bit. Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate it. I'm concerned about a lawsuit for garnishment happening. 8/14. Okay. Pisces rising, sun in Cancer, moon in Gemini. And on the 14th, there is going to be a court date, I'm assuming. So a couple things. One is law and legality for you is Mars, okay? And ironically, things that we fight for, and Mars is starting to come into an opposition with Neptune. So there's going to be a lot of being like, I've been victimized, you know, this happened to me, or why is this happening to me, or why is somebody attacking me? Especially with Mars in opposition to Neptune, the emotional impact that that has on you. Mercury retrograde on your descendant as well. A lot of back and forth with people, documents, communication, that kind of stuff. I have a legal situation coming back and hitting me from 2014. I'm launching a new online business, going independent from the company I'm with. Pluto on my... Yeah, I could see Pluto on Black Moon Lilith empowering you, but it's moving away. What you have working in your favor is you're coming into a Mars return. And you have Mars at 29 degrees, so karmic situations involving other people and some challenge and conflict. But it looks like your Mars return is going to be right around the 25th of August. And believe it or not, wrapping up lawsuits or, you know, mediating things is very 6th house. So Mercury is actually retrograding into this. So I'm wondering if there's going to be something that comes up where you're like, can we come to an agreement? Can we wrap something up? Try to negotiate something, especially right around September 5th. And then people coming after, I'm not going to say after you, but money owed is definitely a theme. The end of September into October. Venus retrograde in the 6th as well could also be part of like wrapping some of this stuff up. A lot of it depends on, I hired a lawyer for Monday, court deadline garnishment. Does this ruin my opportunity? Also healing from autoimmune disability. Okay. So the Venus retrograde in your 6th is health related. The Saturn retrograde is also health related. You're dealing with both of those things clear until like September, October. But I feel part of Mercury finally coming into conjunction with Mars is possibly going to be about a decision that's being made, whether or not this is going to get wrapped up. And that's the beginning of October. And the Cazimi taking place in Leo, I mean, Venus conjunct the Sun is about putting an end to something in regards to what you started, you know, in regards to an old job from the past, retrograde people that you used to work with. So I think it's more about that, to be honest with you. I think the other issue that's kind of happening also is Venus rules, you know, money owed, and Pluto is coming into an opposition and the nodes are squaring. So yeah, going your own way, doing your own, you know, you're working for yourself is definitely the way to go, 100%. You're going to find that that's really the only way forward, is kind of like removing yourself from working with toxic people. This is happening preemptively before Saturn comes into an opposition with Uranus and Pluto. Like, that's really what this is about. The Cazimi trine the midheaven, maybe. Yeah, it is at a 22, but I really feel like this is more about like Jupiter transits and where Jupiter is actually trining your descendant. So it's helping bring in clients, allow you to continue to work well with other people and bring resources in, personally. And then I think when the Sun starts coming into an opposition with Saturn, I think it's really gearing towards being able to squash this and move on. But once again, a lot of people, I don't think, I mean, obviously astrology is like very complex, okay? So it's not easy to look at every single new and full moon. That's really what astrologers are for. But this new moon that's in your 6th house, which is about something kind of chaotic going on in regards to like having worked with old coworkers from the past, or, you know, old companies, squares Uranus. So you're going to want to watch. It sounds like you are kind of familiar with aspects when the moon goes into Scorpio and when the moon goes into Aquarius. That's when you're going to see the squares. That's going to push this thing along in the next month. And I do feel like there can be like a conclusion that's reached, or like a settlement, or like, you know, making an agreement so that way, you know, this can go away. Yeah, I do feel like that. But you're not looking at actually owing anything or potentially having to pay for anything or anything like that, maybe until Mars is coming into conjunction with your 8th house. That's not going to be for a while. So I think that there is a lot of room to negotiate and try to kind of find a middle ground here before it gets to that point, which once again, not until about mid-October. That's when you're seeing some of that stuff come in. But North Node and Jupiter and Uranus all kind of hovering around your 2nd house, it makes me feel like you're definitely having to learn how to work harder for your resources, right? And trust me, by the time Saturn crosses your ascendant and it opposes all this and it squares, in the midst of all of this stuff that's going on with like the lawsuit, like, don't lose track of your health, because next year as Saturn crosses your ascendant with Saturn and Chiron, you really want to be making sure that you're taking care of this and shoring up a lot of this like work drama, so that way it's not impacting your immune system. Immune system is Pisces and you have Saturn on your ascendant. So this is about preparing and clearing out all of the gunk so you can be really focused on taking better care of your health in this next year, in my opinion. Watch by about the end of October, some of the legal stuff should be, if not wrapped up, wrapping up. And see if there's a way to be able to kind of find a middle ground with some of these people. But going your own way is really the only direction, because you're very much impacted by other people's like negativity at work. Uranus, Pluto in opposition to Saturn. You're better off working by yourself. I hope that's helpful. Sending you lots of healing vibes. Definitely do some soaks. Soak in your feet. Maybe see a foot reflexologist. That can help with Saturn and Chiron on the ascendant. Hands-on healing, psychic healing, spiritual healing, that kind of stuff too. We got Samantha and then Michelle. You guys are my last ones. I can imagine, yeah, you've had a lot of stuff opposing your Cancer placements the last couple of years. It's been a lot for a lot of my Cancerians. I've got Sam, so 24th of October, 1977. Oh, I take that back. Wrong Samantha. Sorry, give me one second. Let's see. There we go. There we go. October 24th, 77 in Australia. So you are Scorpio rising, sun in Scorpio, moon in Pisces. Whoa, look at that 12th house you have there, my dear. Holy cow. Okay, so Venus Cazimi reading. All right, well, this particular retrograde for you, the Venus retrograde started on your Saturn. And for Capricorn, for a Scorpio rising, Saturn rules Capricorn, your third house of communications, ideas, and your fourth house, which deals with home and emotions and family. So really the Cazimi, in my mind, that moment is also tied to whatever's been going on for you really since like mid-July. As Venus started turning retrograde over your Saturn, it's a lot of what am I committing to? What do I love, right? And your Saturn is in conjunction to Regulus. So this is going to be about making a big statement, putting something out there that's high quality, that's very visible, showcasing your talent, where you're kind of like royal or regal in some way, right? So for Scorpio, Venus rules your seventh house of relationships, partners, collaborators, your marketplace. So if you offer a service, if you have clients or relationships, that's being reevaluated. And Venus also rules your 12th house, which is an energy you're familiar with because you've got a lot of planets there. So this can be about what's karmic, what's hidden, what's subconscious, things like that. So Venus's retrograde through your 10th house is about, what am I doing out in the world? And what am I showing the world? And what is my status out in the world, right? I'm thinking like with the Sun and Venus in conjunction, it could be about a very prominent meeting, okay? So it can be about meeting with a counselor, a therapist. It can be about getting a reading. Leo and Scorpio placements might show up. It can be about meeting a prominent woman. But this is about the death of one phase, the beginning of a new. So it can be, somebody segues at work and you take their position, or, you have a epiphany about the direction that you do want to be going with your professional life, and it requires you to start a partnership or, talk to somebody about it. This conjunction is also squaring Uranus still. So there is some static between what's going on with you professionally and the changes that you want to make, that your heart wants, Leo, that's more creative, more fun. That is also requiring you to make some big changes with your relationships. I think it's really interesting that this is also squaring your ascendant. So to me, it seems very big, right? And your ascendant is at a 19, which is a relationship degree. Anybody who's got this many planets in the 12th house is intuitive, hidden, private, working behind the scenes, doing your own thing. Obviously, you have an interest in astrology, Sun, Uranus, and Mercury in conjunction. So you're super tapped in. I would imagine with Saturn trining right now, there is more thinking about creative goals and hobbies, or maybe exploring the potential for working for yourself or doing something metaphysical, especially with Neptune on your moon. You're feeling very drawn to that. And Neptune is also coming into a trine with Mars, which is your chart ruler. So to teach, to travel, to learn, to publish, to write, to share. So what's going on with this Venus retrograde in your 10th is like, how can I reimagine what my status is in the world, what I'm doing professionally, what I have to offer other people. So it could be rebranding yourself, right? That could be another way that this could potentially kind of go down. I also think that it is very possible for you to maybe consider, if you're questioning or you're unsure about making a job change, you might talk to like a career coach or a counselor. You might have a sit-down conversation with a romantic partner about, the direction that you're wanting to go with your life. You may also have some changes in an existing relationship maybe. That's possible as well. but it's a rebirth energy. So being that it's going to happen at a Scorpio degree, I think that you're going to navigate this a little bit better or a little bit more easily than most people. In the back of my mind, I know that Pluto is coming into your 4th house pretty soon, and it's going to square your Sun and your Mercury. So that tells me that come the spring next year, big changes and transformations on the home front. You might live somewhere new, changes with your family, renovations, big changes with parents and other things. That's going to put the pressure on you to be willing to change your status or your reputation out in the world. So if you are single, then part of what's going to be happening here with the Venus retrograde is the opening to wanting to change your status, whether that's professionally or your career, and like really being present with that for like the next 2 months. If you're working though, it is possible there can be a connection, or you could be meeting somebody at work or through work or collaborating with somebody in that capacity, right? But you have a lot of planets in your 12th house. So this is definitely an energy where, I'm not going to say you're keeping to yourself, but you definitely, you like your privacy. And the South Node is going through there now, so it's trying to clear a lot of that stuff out, where you're letting go of old, outdated things you're holding on to, fears maybe of relationships or being seen. And the North Node's going into your 6th house, which is going to be more about action and productivity. I like the trines. You know, the 10th house to the 6th house is, how can I find more time for the things that I love? How can I be more productive and more creative, right? But yeah, look for some turning point, either with a woman at work, with a relationship, or with a potential partner that comes in. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And we've got Michelle. SR says, have you always had an interest in astrology? Thank you, I appreciate it. I have for a very long time, since I was like 14, so it's been a while. It's going on, what, 17 years? All right, so we've got Michelle here, August 7th, 1987 at 9:30. So you're a Pisces rising, Sun in Leo, and your moon is in Capricorn. Wowzer, look at that Venus retrograde through your own planets. Okay, so she says, how would the Venus Cazimi affect my routines? What else can you tell me about my chart in terms of career or love? All right, so a couple things. Looking at your chart just in general, I just want to talk about your natal for a second. You've got Saturn retrograde technically in your whole sign first, so you're reevaluating your health and your body and your boundaries, and it's dipping into your 12th. So this is about rest, recuperation, and meditation. That all in conjuncts all of your Leo. So, you know, your 6th house is a lot of like, how can I be busy? How can I be productive? How can things be perfect? You know, like all that Leo kind of 6th house energy. And I think part of Saturn coming into an in conjunction is like learning how to be patient with the process if you are going through a change in your routines, and giving yourself an okay to like not be perfect, like knowing that, you know, healing or going through a transformation is going to take time, and that thoughts and emotions very much do affect what physically changes. You know, for Leo, this particular you know, Saturn transit quite literally is about letting things go, emotional healing, psychological healing, things involving detoxes, purges, cleanses. So I wonder if there's a lot of like cleansing yourself, focusing on your own emotions and like better taking care of like your vibes. So that way you're not feeling like you have to be as concerned or fixated about health or habits or routines. These are probably your favorite words though, because you have, you know, Mercury connected to your 6th house, you have the Sun and Mars there. So generally this is somebody who likes to work, they like to work out, they like to be busy, they like to get things done, you like to kind of tinker with things and fix things. All of this also in conjuncts your ascendant. And Pisces ascendant say we have to listen to our intuition, we have to know when the time is right, we have to be kind of in the flow. Versus the 6th house, which is much more like mental and cerebral and analytical, and it wants like numbers and facts and figures and schedules. Okay, so part of these transits with Saturn here and Venus here is showing you that If it's all work and no balance in the emotional or spiritual side, then you're always going to be kind of struggling with trying to work through habits and routines. Okay? Now the Cazimi is actually right on your Mars, ruler of the second house. Money, possessions, resources, self-esteem, but also what you're eating. And this is at a 20. So there's going to be some kind of change or transformation revolving around what you're investing in. It can be like what gym you're going to, what supplements you're taking, what you're eating. I can see the North Node's been on your Jupiter recently, so you've been really focused on like health and wellness and productivity, and hopefully doing a lot of work in regards to your self-esteem, building yourself up, right? Which you really need while Pluto is still close to your moon, square Jupiter. Learning how to surround yourself with people who are powerful and empowering. And that North Node conjunct Jupiter is really making yourself feel good, feel worthy, telling yourself that you're good enough. Yes, Venus retrograde in the 6th, you may not be feeling the love. Yes, Mercury retrograde in the 7th. Yes, maybe not communicating as well with other people. All the more reason to bring your attention actually to Saturn and the full moon that you're going to have in Pisces. But in particular, the Cazimi moment, I think, is going to be several-fold for you. While, the Cazimi is going to be an epiphany, there's more clearing out that's going to happen around the 14th and the 15th of August as you come into the new moon. Then you're going to have your Venus going direct early September, and then Venus is going to sit on your Sun. So likely whatever changes you've made, you're feeling better about by about the second week of September. And then when Venus comes into conjunction with Mars, you're also really feeling like, wow, I made that cutback, that change. I'm feeling like a lot better, a lot more productive, and also feeling probably like better with your habits and your daily routine. That Venus transit is trining the North Node of your body and your movement and action, and it's also trining Saturn. So quite honestly, it's like, it's a really wonderful transit for you. I feel like it's about taking action and productivity and like learning how to fill your own cup again. Still, until Venus comes out of squares with Jupiter and Uranus, you're still kind of feeling it. But I would say by the end of September, early October, maybe you have realized that you need more time for creativity, self-expression, fun, romance, right? And it can't all be focused on just like work and what I have to get done. It's about learning to kind of like listen to your emotions in your body too, and like being okay slowing down. Retrogrades can bring reversals. So if you feel like you've been working a lot, there can be a sense of kind of kicking back a little bit. If you've been, feeling like you've been really productive, you might give yourself a little bit of slack. But for me, this is screaming health stuff and reproductive health stuff at 20 degrees as well. Hormones and things regarding like your menstrual cycle that can be coming up, and what you're willing to kind of cut out. Venus retrograde could be like sugars. So there might be a sense of cutting certain foods out of your diet. So that way you're noticing like the effects that it has on your productivity, maybe. That's the other way of looking at it. And anything that might help aid limiting inflammation. That's the other thing I can look at. But Sun, Mars in the 6th house, are you really fixated about like working out? Do you find that you're really restless? Do you have issues with, accidents, cuts, burns, abrasions? Do you have fevers or rashes, digestional issues, 6th house? What else? I've seen a lot of people with this retrograde that are either cutting out sugar or they're quitting smoking or like vaping. So that could be coming up here for you as well. But personally, I think the 6th house is where you're feeling like things are out of balance, with other people. And if you're like, oh, I'm not getting what I need from other people, it's like giving it to yourself and not falling into being like, oh, I'm going to have sugar, because that will also kind of throw you off a little bit. You might feel like you're craving it. Yeah, you're cutting out sweets. Okay, there it is. So give yourself time. Like sugar is a drug, by the way. Sugar is a drug. So that trine that you're experiencing to Jupiter is like how much better you feel maybe not being on it, or maybe experimenting with other kinds of sugars, right? Venus retrograde, square Uranus. Do you go cold turkey, or do you say, well, I'm going to try stevia, or I'm going to try monk fruit sweetener? I've been through all of them. Monk fruit sweetener and stevia single-handedly helped me get off sugar. Does it taste exactly the same? No, but it's still sweet, and at least it's not going to have all of the crap that's going to come with that. But give yourself until about October, right around the time that holiday season is kicking in. Hopefully you will have kicked your sweet habit. And I would also say look into things that are like warm. Infrared saunas, hot yoga, being out in the sun, working up a sweat, anything where you can like detox. Like maybe one of those like sauna sacks or something can also be good for some of this. So you're kind of getting it out of your system. All right, well, I hope that was helpful in giving you some insight. And I'm pretty sure we got everybody. I just want to make sure before I sign off, did we miss anyone? I don't think so, but you never know. There was a lot of people tonight. As a reminder, I'm going to be back here on Sunday. We're going to have astro weather. I'm going to talk to you guys about Mars trine Uranus. We've got a new moon coming. We've got obviously the Cazimi tomorrow. So if you guys haven't already done that, put some stuff out for Venus. And we'll be back next week. We're going to be doing tarot readings on Friday. Okay, so check in with me on Friday if you guys want to get a reading. Make sure you give me the thumbs up before we leave the stream. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for spending your Friday night with me. And I'm sure I will see all of you guys next week. Enjoy the rest of your week.